Before we get started, there's only one way to properly review this game. Let's get into it. Over 20 years after its initial release in 1997, Final Fantasy VII remains one of the most iconic, enduring, and beloved stories in video game history. It's achieved an iconic status that very few games can even hope to match. Hell, you don't even have to have played it to know it. Hell, I didn't even play it until a few years ago. Now look at me. Cloud Strife and his iconic Buster Sword. Tifa Lockhart, my wifey, my girl, who I might be mildly in love with. I don't know. Jury's still out on that one. Sephiroth and his long Masamune blade and long silver hair, and especially that iconic shot of him walking through the flames. Aerith, and one of the most iconic moments in video game history. That brilliant soundtrack by Nobuo Uematsu that's just filled with gems, including that main battle theme that never gets old no matter how many times it's played and always fills you with energy, which is a great achievement considering how many random encounters there are in this game. And it still never gets old, at least not to me. There's so much unforgettable iconography in this game that's so deeply ingrained into our culture that you can't not know it. Hell, Cloud and Sephiroth were even in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Here's my reaction to Sephiroth's reveal in the 2020 Game Awards.
No way! What?
Sephiroth.
What? I just beat the original Final Fantasy VII yesterday. Literally just did this boss fight yesterday. Holy shit. What? What? I would never have guessed that. I thought maybe Tifa, but never. Oh, no way. Yo.
The cultural impact of this game is unavoidable. And trust me, my friends, you do not want to avoid it. No, instead you should run headfirst into this game and embrace it and all of its greatness. And today, I will explain to you why. There are many reasons as to why this game is so beloved and iconic, and many reasons why I love it personally. So join me as I explain why Final Fantasy VII is one of my favorite games ever. There are many brilliant aspects of this game that are beyond commendable and unforgettable. But at the end of the day, all these things add up to masterfully tell a brilliant and unforgettable story. To me, the primary reason the story remains unforgettable and so impactful is not just because of the story itself, but because of how it is told. And like I said, it is told masterfully. It's not just the content, it's the brilliant execution of the content. The deliberate and meticulous manner in which information is revealed. It is for this reason that I recommend newcomers play the original game before Remake. I enjoyed Remake. I had my problems with it, but the flow of information overall pales in comparison to the original. There were just too many changes for my liking, and too many reveals that were done way too early in a far less satisfying way than the original. Despite being a remake, it feels like a game where you have to have played the original to fully understand everything. In a way, it acts like a soft reboot and sequel to the original. And that's the game's crime. It failed to make the original story more palatable to an audience that may not be as willing to play the original PS1 turn-based game with low polygon graphics, random encounters, and no voice acting. When Remake is brilliant, it's brilliant. Other times, not so much. And I can discuss this more in depth at a later time, but to conclude this segment, yeah, play the original first, trust me. I had a friend recommend that I play the original before Remake, and I'm glad I listened to him. He was 100% right. And this isn't nostalgia talking. The remake had already been out for a few months by the time I played the original game for the first time in 2021. Hell, this game is older than me. Yet, even still, its legacy endures. So enough beating around the bush. What makes this game's storytelling so brilliant? Well, it's a lot of things. For one, listening to an explained video catching you up in the story doesn't do it justice. Because Final Fantasy VII isn't just a game, it's an experience, and an unforgettable one. Any retelling of this story that starts hundreds or thousands of years ago with the ancients or a calamity from the sky, take that crap and throw it in the garbage. That's not how Final Fantasy VII starts. This is how Final Fantasy VII starts. A flower girl in a cyberpunk futuristic city, Midgar. And then we get right into the action. A high-speed train bursts onto the scene, and from it, our characters spring right into the action, fighting their way through troops to a reactor. And we're off. Cue the music. It's so good. Even as I'm writing this, I can hear and see it perfectly in my head. The way Cloud flips onto the scene as Barrett calls him, what an unforgettable character introduction. What an unforgettable game introduction. And it keeps getting better. Our main character enters the battle, Buster Sword in hands, and before we even know his real name, we know him as Ex-Soldier. Even before we know his name, which, if we're being technical, is customizable, One main thing we know for a fact that is set in stone about our protagonist is that he is an ex-soldier. Keep that in mind, we'll come back to that later. Well, that and he's the newbie in this group, and that he used to work for the enemy, Shinra. But what does ex-soldier even mean? Why is it all capitalized? And what the hell is Shinra? And then we get Barrett, the badass, no-nonsense, gruff and tough leader of this resistance group with a gun for an arm, followed by Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge. The group is known as Avalanche. Cloud makes it clear he's just here for this one job, and Barrett makes it clear he doesn't trust Cloud. The team fights their way through the reactor, encounters the first boss, and plants the bomb. Through this sequence, we learn the essentials about the characters and the gameplay mechanics, and use those gameplay mechanics to defeat the boss at the end of the mission. A very natural, quick, and to-the-point tutorial. Gameplay and story intertwined. What a perfect start. Right as Cloud is about to plant the bomb, something bizarre happens. It's a quick moment, it happens, and we move on. But what does it mean? The bomb is planted, the timer is set, and the team narrowly escapes the reactor and the ensuing Shinra troops as they escape onto the train. It's here, after the action, that we get a quiet moment, and we learn more about this world, the city, the people inhabiting it, these characters, the mission, and more. Here we learn that this was a Mako reactor. Shinra, the mega corporation that controls the city, is using these reactors to drain the planet of its life energy and using that energy for various purposes, including to power everything around you and to create materia, which are the little orbs you used earlier that gave you magic abilities in battle. You'll use these a lot in the game. Avalanche has made it their mission to stop them from draining the planet by destroying these reactors. The wealthy in Midgar live on the upper planes, or below. The group gets off below at Sector 7 and makes their way to a bar in the slums called 7th Heaven, and it's there where we meet her. Tifa Lockhart. My woman! God, I love Tifa. She's one of my favorite characters in the game, if not my favorite. And can you blame me? I mean, just look at her. And that's just the visual. Wait until you actually get to know her. We meet her on the porch of the bar, dressed in thigh highs with suspenders, watching Barrett's daughter Marlene, welcoming us in, and as her theme song plays, a soothing presence sets in, and suddenly you feel safe. You're walking into a bar in the slums after you just blew up a reactor, and yet, in a weird way, it's like you're returning home. Tifa is a sweetheart, a kind, soothing presence in a nasty, rundown world. She's a core member of Avalanche and provides both refuge for the group to relax and a secret meeting room. And more importantly to Cloud, she's a dear childhood friend and a source of comfort for him. It is here, through Tifa, as Cloud is about to leave, that he is reminded of a childhood memory. It's through her that we get our first glimpse at Cloud's childhood, and a hint at the core of his character, who he is, why he joined Soldier, and why he's even involved with this mission to begin with. This memory, this water tower scene, this simple exchange between two childhood friends is the linchpin to understanding everything that these characters are about at their core. These things will only be recontextualized and strengthened by information and reveals we get later on. And it's the slow and meticulous exploration of Cloud's character over the course of the game that makes him one of the greatest characters in video game history, and it's what makes his journey so unforgettable. It's not just the money, no. Under his cold exterior lies a promise he made to a childhood friend, perhaps even a girl he liked. He wanted to join Soldier to be strong like his hero, Sephiroth. Yes, we will learn about him soon, and to protect people. And then she looks him in the eyes and asks her dear friend to make her a promise.
If you get famous and I'm ever in a bind, you'll come and save me, alright? If I'm ever in trouble, my hero will come and rescue me. I want to experience that at least once.
And so here we are. Tifa is in a bind, and Cloud, now strong, is here to help her out. From the purest of childhood dreams and friendships, everything is born. Somewhere deep down in the core, in the hearts of these characters, even after all of these years and hardships, amidst a hellscape, these dreams still reside. We even get a glimpse into Barrett's soft side as he lovingly embraces his daughter, Marlene, at the bar. Despite his rough, mean exterior and his militant actions, there's a clear heart at the center of all of this. So we go from this explosive introduction with a reactor heist, all the way to this sweet moment between two childhood friends just talking, and every moment I am invested. I've said this before and I'll say it again. What a brilliant introduction to this game. I remember being hooked when I first started playing it, and I couldn't wait to get more. And yes, that's right, we are first introduced to Sephiroth, one of gaming's most iconic villains, not through some bombastic cutscene or a grand reveal, but in a line of dialogue, as the childhood hero idolized by our main character who set him on this path to begin with. This is our very first impression of the character. Cloud didn't just look up to Sephiroth. They weren't just friends. No, Cloud idolized Sephiroth. What a brilliant subversion yet to come. But how do we get there? What happens? Man, the journey this game takes you on is one that will make it all worth it. And again, it's not just the information, it's the deliberate manner that that information is revealed in that makes it so damn memorable. I won't go through the whole story beat for beat, but I wanted to highlight the brilliance of this game's introduction because it lays the foundation for so much of what comes later. It's paced magnificently, and each piece of information is deliberately planted there. Seeds are planted, they will bloom in time. Maybe not when you think, maybe not how you think, but all will bloom. And remember, as things progress, that what isn't told to us is just as crucial as what is, as are the sources of information that we get it from. Here's the truth. Before we get into specifics and spoilers, Final Fantasy VII is one of the greatest games ever made, and there's no way I could possibly convey the events of this game in as deliberately brilliant of a manner as the original game did. So this video cannot serve as a proper substitute for playing this game. Instead, this video is meant to highlight the brilliance within its storytelling. This is just me gushing, analyzing, and showing my immense appreciation for a piece of entertainment that I love. So in short, play the game yourself if you haven't already. The characters are phenomenal. I love the turn-based combat, though the random encounters are admittedly super annoying after a while. And the story is great too, and the soundtrack is up there with The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for one of the greatest video game soundtracks ever. For those of you wishing to stay, don't say I didn't warn you, because from this point forward, be wary of spoilers. Major ones. And while I can't get to everything, I'll get to everything relevant to my main points. I won't give certain context for everything, just some bits of extra explaining here and there, and will remain speaking mostly under the assumption you've played the game, or that you really don't care about spoilers. So on we go. Cloud, Barret, and Tifa bomb a second reactor where they're ambushed by President Shinra and company, and Cloud, in the eyes of Barret and Tifa, seemingly falls to his death, only to wind up landing in a church where he once again meets the flower girl, Aerith, and their relationship blossoms. Right away, Aerith is lovable. Like Tifa, she offers a soothing presence, only she's a bit more adventurous. While you could argue bombing a reactor is more adventurous and rebellious than anything Aerith does, Tifa's acts of rebellion are more about duty, whereas Aerith's are more about fun and a sense of being a free spirit. She tries to break through Cloud's cold, uncaring, tough guy exterior, and it's a joy to watch. She sees a softness, a real Cloud hidden inside of him that others don't. She's refreshing, a breath of fresh air in a world that's increasingly deprived of it. And another difference between her and Tifa is that while Tifa is more shy, Aerith makes the first move and openly flirts with Cloud from the beginning, asking him on a date and teasing him. We also learn that she's a powerful mage, having the highest magic stat of all of the party members in the game. Much like with Tifa, it's hard not to fall in love with Aerith. And that's another brilliant thing this game does. You get to fall for, interact with, and romance the girls directly through Cloud, so your attachments and relationships feel that much more personal. And in a moment where the two sit together in the park, paralleling Cloud and Tifa's moment on the water tower, Aerith asks Cloud what class he was. Cloud oddly blanks for a moment, asking what she means. She clarifies, and Cloud thinks. A brief white flash, and he responds with Soldier First Class. She tells him the first boy she liked was the same, but before Cloud can get a name out of her, they are suddenly interrupted as Tifa is seemingly in need of a rescue. Note this pattern. This misdirection right before you're about to get crucial information is something this game does repeatedly to great effect, and it'll be noted many times throughout this video. Fast forward a bit and we get some devastating news. Shinra, in an attempt to snuff out the Avalanche terrorists, is going to drop one of the upper plates in the city complex onto Sector 7 below, killing countless civilians. So our brave heroes make a mad dash to aid their Avalanche friends. They get there only to see Wedge plummet from the tower to his death right before their eyes. Knowing the situation is dire, Tifa asks Aerith to save Marlene from the bar in case they fail to stop the plate drop. She and Cloud make their way up the tower only to find themselves too late to save both Biggs and Jessie, who also die before their eyes. Only Barret remains, and they continue to fight to stop the plate drop, and despite their best efforts, as they desperately fight to stop the plate from dropping. As you, the player, desperately fight to stop the plate from dropping, you fail, and watch helplessly as Sector 7 is crushed mercilessly, killing countless civilians, Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett narrowly escaping with their lives. The heroes failed, completely and utterly, and Avalanche is blamed for the destruction. It's a devastating moment, and you really feel for our heroes here. But not all is lost. There still remains hope. Aerith, who saved Marlene but was kidnapped by Shinra in the process. It is here that we learn from Aerith's adopted mother that Aerith is the last of the Ancients, otherwise known as the Cetra, an ancient race of humans with deep spiritual connection to the planet and powerful magic abilities. She promised Aerith's dying mother she'd look after her. So, with nothing left to lose and no home to return to, the trio embark on a rescue mission to Shinra HQ. And it is here, in Hojo's lab, where Cloud encounters something bizarre. And he has an equally bizarre reaction. The ringing returns. He holds his head and sees a headless blue humanoid woman's figure inside of a test container before he collapses. And Tifa immediately stops what she's doing.
Genova, Sephiroth. So, they brought it here.
What do these words mean? Revisiting this scene and others like it make me really appreciate all of the brilliant foreshadowing at play at this game. We're getting these puzzle pieces that don't quite add up yet, but they will in time. Cloud recovers, we move on, and they free Aerith as well as a lab specimen, a talking dog-like creature named Red 13, who was being experimented on by the sinister Dr. Hojo, who, might I say, is quite possibly the most evil character in the entire game. The team are free for mere moments before they are captured. Once again, we are given hope only for Shinra to take the upper hand and rip it away from us again. And then it happens. The event that changes the entire trajectory of the game. The lights go out. The doors to their cells are opened. And what they find are corpses of dead Shinra guards and a trail of blood, destruction, and death. The container with the body of the Genova specimen smashed open. The body gone. They follow the trail of blood all the way up to the top, only to find President Shinra dead in his chair, a long sword in his back. You fought and sacrificed everything you had to get here. You grinded, you leveled up your characters and your materia, you lost friends, fought through countless enemies only to end up defeated and imprisoned in cells. And something managed to take out all of these enemies that you failed to defeat in one foul swoop. Who could have possibly done this? That sword. Cloud recognizes it immediately. It's Sephiroth's.
You mean Sephiroth is alive?
Creeping around, they find Palmer, one of the Shinra executives, terrified out of his mind. He claims he saw Sephiroth and heard him mumbling about being in search of the Promised Land. Great, so Sephiroth is this good guy who killed all of these bad guys in order to save this thing called the Promised Land. So everything is solved now, right? Wrong. As Cloud says,
Save the Promised Land? Good guy? No way. It's not that simple. Believe me. Sephiroth must have some other goal.
And just like that, before we can elaborate any further, Rufus Shinra, son of President Shinra, arrives via helicopter to take his father's place. So this game does all of this, raises all of these questions in both you and the characters. Then right before you can dwell on them or work towards any answers, boom, next threat, and it requires your immediate attention. No time to ask. Brilliant. But let's ask anyway. Cloud idolized Sephiroth. He stopped Shinra, and yet when Barrett asked if Sephiroth was a good guy, he immediately shut it down. What is going on with this Sephiroth guy? We've seen his sword, we've heard whispers, but we still know nothing about him. Who is he? What is going on? They fight their way past Rufus Shinra, and together the party escapes Midgar. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the introductory portion of the game ends, and where the search for Sephiroth begins. Before, the party's main goal was to defeat Shinra. Well, Shinra is still up and running under new management, and they're still certainly enemies, but now they have a new mysterious enemy and a new primary target, Sephiroth. We need answers, damn it! And now they come. So the party gathers, and Cloud explains everything. He joined Soldier, that's the name of the Shinra military program, by the way, for the highest level soldiers who were enriched with Mako energy. And it's there where Cloud met Sephiroth. They worked side by side on a lot of missions, but Cloud isn't sure if Sephiroth and him were friends. Sephiroth didn't talk about himself much. They were comrades in arms, but they never really bonded on any personal level outside of that. Until something happened about 5 years ago. The Nibelheim incident. Arguably the most important incident in the entire game. Our flashback sequence begins and we finally get our first real look at Sephiroth. Cloud and Sephiroth are heading back to Cloud's hometown, Nibelheim, to investigate issues with the reactor nearby, as there has been an outbreak of brutal monsters in the area. And on the way they face a giant dragon-like monster. Your attacks are useless, but Sephiroth deals massive amounts of damage, evading the monster's attacks like they're nothing and dispatching the creature with ease. The gameplay is used here to tell a story. Sephiroth here is far above you, displaying powers within the game that are far beyond your capabilities. This is our first glimpse at Sephiroth's power, and it eclipses ours, Cloud's, a fellow first-class soldiers, in an instant. As our ally, his powers are a comfort. But then with that comes a terrifying thought. If turned against us, what kind of devastation would they bring? Upon arrival, Sephiroth remarks to Cloud that it must be nice to have a hometown and parents as well, for he had none of these things. He had a mother named Genova who died during childbirth, and as for his father, he laughs and then changes the subject. More odd details. Here, Cloud can also make small conversation with one of the infantrymen that accompanies them. The infantryman is nervous that a monster might show up, but Cloud? Nah man, he's all fired up. A small detail that for now seems insignificant. Speaking of details, while Cloud relives these memories through you as the player, he is repeatedly interjected and questioned by Tifa and others about certain details to which you can respond and make choices about what happened. Did he take a look at the letter on Tifa's desk when she wasn't there? And other trivial stuff like that. Okay, I get that you make little choices throughout the game, but this is the past, right? Even if it is gameplay, isn't it set in stone? Why did Tifa have no questions during the flashback on the water tower, but now here she does? There are no choices like this during any other flashback sequences throughout the game, so it just seems odd. Ultimately, these are minute details. Choices with little consequences, so maybe it's not odd. Maybe it doesn't really matter. You're making choices in these past memories the same way you would in the present, and trivial ones with no serious implications. Carry on. One weird thing though is that we see her have lines saying ... A lot of the characters remain silent during Cloud's retelling of the Nibelheim incident, but then why add this? In a text-based game, accentuating her silence above the other party members' silence during Cloud's retelling of Nibelheim is a deliberate choice. Why? Could be for a number of reasons. I mean, the events of Nibelheim were pretty traumatic for her, as we'll soon see. So Cloud revisits his mom at home, gets some rest, and in the morning Cloud and Sephiroth meet up with their tour guide, Tifa of all people, and they take a picture before she guides them up the mountain to the reactor with the other two infantrymen. One infantryman is lost in a bridge collapse, to which Sephiroth replies very matter-of-factly,
It may sound cruel, but we've no time to search for him.
and thus they carry on.
On their journey, Sephiroth describes Dr. Hojo as
An inexperienced man who inherited the work of a great scientist. He was a walking mass of complexes.
Finally, they reach the reactor, and with it, a startling revelation. Sephiroth discovers, to his horror, creatures being made and experimented on with Mako energy within these test chambers and the word Genova written above a sealed door in the back. Here, Sephiroth snaps. Genova, his mother's name, in the same room as these monstrosities, what appears to be the results of human Mako experiments, and so he begins to consider a haunting possibility. Was this how he was created? He always knew he was different, but in these test pods he sees a terrifying possibility, and he doesn't like it. Not one bit. He needs answers, and he's going to get them. So Cloud is dismissed, and Sephiroth spends manic days and sleepless nights in the secret basement library of Shinra Manor going through scientific document after document after document, never resting. Finally, the concerned townspeople send Cloud to check on Sephiroth, and what he finds is a changed man, mind bent and broken, and he will never be the same again. Not now, not ever. For what he learned shattered his identity to bitter pieces, and from these broken fragments he put himself back together sharper, deadlier, and more unstable than ever before. And it's not just Shinra he hates No, it's all of humanity. From these notes, Sephiroth learns of the Cetra, ancient nomadic people who at the end of their long journey would reach the Promised Land in supreme happiness. However, some chose to settle rather than travel, and they became humans. What's instantly off-putting is that throughout this conversation, Sephiroth spitefully refers to humanity as Cloud's people and traitors, like he has already distanced himself from humanity fully. Like he's holding him and all of humanity personally responsible for what happened to the Cetra. For you see, when a great calamity from the skies struck the planet, the Cetra sacrificed themselves so that humanity may live. And so humans continued to spread out and multiply. And Sephiroth turns and stares Cloud directly in the eyes and says,
Now all that's left of the Cetra are these reports.
Naturally taken aback, as anyone would be, Cloud asks Sephiroth what any of this has to do with him. And so he tells him. A 2,000-year-old body of a Cetra named Genova was found in the ice. From her, the Genova Project was born. A project meant to birth humans with the powers of the Cetra. That is how Sephiroth was created. When Cloud asks for more details about Sephiroth's creation, he storms off, and when Cloud tries to slow him down, Sephiroth coldly declares,
Out of my way. I'm going to see my mother.
Before fleeing. Cloud chases after him only to discover, to his horror, his village in flames, his mother dead, and Sephiroth, his childhood hero, his comrade in arms, slaughtering the townspeople. And then we get it. Finally, after all of this time, that haunting, iconic, unforgettable shot of Sephiroth in flames. And from these blazing fires, everything Cloud loved about Sephiroth burns away, if it was ever even there at all. And all that remains is the true Sephiroth. Pure, psychotic evil. An unfeeling man with a god complex and a pure hatred for humanity. And through the blazing fire and flame, one of gaming's most iconic villains in history is born. Now, a vengeful Cloud races up the mountain to the reactor to find Tifa crying over the corpse of her murdered father. She declares her hatred for Shinra and Sephiroth and rushes to kill him. Sephiroth turns from the door marked Genova and strikes Tifa down with ease. And here he stands, before his mother, Genova, a strange, disturbing sight to behold, as he declares his desire to take her back to the Promised Land. When Cloud bursts vengefully onto the scene, Sephiroth shows nothing but a cold, uncaring disregard for him and those he killed. The Sephiroth Cloud idolized is gone, as is every last connection he had to humanity, and now he knows it. He takes up arms, ready to engage his foe, and then nothing. Cloud doesn't remember what happened next. All of that buildup, everything, that climactic fight between him and Sephiroth, and his memory blanks. It makes no sense. Even the other characters don't get it. How are Cloud and Tifa alive? The papers declared Sephiroth dead, but they're owned by Shinra. None of this makes sense. They don't have the answers of the past. Cloud lacks memories he should have, but doesn't. And yet we learn a lot of important things. We better understand why a total sweetheart like Tifa would join an eco-terrorist group to fight Shinra. And we understand through meeting her martial arts master in Nibelheim, Zangen, where her training comes from. Yet still much remains uncertain. Regardless, we take what we have and we move forward. We have to. For the party has an important planet-saving mission, and Sephiroth must be stopped. We're sure the answers will come later. And when the party again is outmatched, this time by a giant snake in the swamp that is way too high of a level for you to fight through, you, the player, must accept defeat and learn to catch a chocobo, a giant bird creature that runs really fast that you can ride through the swamp to get around it. You have to, for if you try, you learn very quickly how outmatched you are. So you learn this new game mechanic, and you get your chocobos to ride. And by the time you get to the other side, you find one of these giant snakes that gave you so much trouble that was impossible for you to either outrun or defeat on your own, impaled on a giant spike by Sephiroth. Dead. Even after 5 years since Nibelheim, he is still leagues ahead of you and all of your party members combined. The threat looms ever present, and he remains ever ahead of you, all of the party members. And it is through the gaming medium, living and playing through the characters, that this strikes a much more personal chord. And from here on, the journey continues. I'll get less specific for a while, but rest assured lots of great character stuff happens. And we meet Yuffie, who, as with every other character in the game, is awesome. She's an optional side character, a teenage girl ninja, materia hunter, and thief from a country called Wutai, and much will be learned about her and her country later on. I mean, I technically met her later on in my playthrough because she's optional and I didn't know you were supposed to encounter her at that point because I didn't even know she existed, but regardless, you're supposed to meet her here. We learn more about Barrett and his past, same with Red 13 and his, and through each experience, our bonds with the characters get stronger, just as they get stronger through leveling up. Character and plot progression on every level. We learn about the characters, the world, and the lore through these story segments. It's awesome. I love that the game takes time for character moments. Speaking of which, there is a strange one that takes place around a bonfire, where Tifa hesitantly begins to ask Cloud a question, but doesn't out of a strange fear.
Cloud? 5 years ago. No, never mind. I can't ask you about that.
Why not?
Because you'll change. You'll drift away from me again. Cloud, you really are yourself, right?
What a weird interaction. Oh well, moving on. I love all of the party members. I even like Kate Sith, or is it pronounced Ketshi? Apparently that's how it's said in Scottish. Oh well, whatever. For the remainder of this video, I'll be pronouncing it Kate Sith. What the hell is Kate Sith? The game doesn't really explain it, and if you Google it, you'll get spoilers, so don't. He's a talking cat on top of a giant stuffed toy Moogle. Except even then there may be more to him. But what's a Moogle? It's one of these things. Confused? So was everyone else when they first met him. I know I was. He's definitely the odd one out of the group, but he serves his role in the story, and like with other characters, goes through a lot of twists, turns, reveals, and character development. But for the sake of this video, I'll primarily put my focus on other characters, especially those related to the Nibelheim incident. In the end, he does justify his existence and role in the story, even if his introduction to the party and initial explanation as to who and what he is could have absolutely been handled better. But even still, in the grand scheme of things, given later reveals and plot progressions, he does ultimately work and make sense in the story. The group also makes a small stop at a town called Gungaga.
Me? Gungaga.
They recognize the distinct blue glow in Cloud's eyes, the mark of a soldier. They then ask him if he knows their son, Zack, who left 10 years ago and hasn't been seen or heard from since. Cloud has no memory of him, but Aerith immediately has an emotional reaction. The parents then ask Aerith if she is his girlfriend that he used to write about so fondly in his letters. Aerith exits the house in tears, and even Tifa makes note of the soldier named Zack before following Aerith out. What's going on? Do these girls know this Zack guy? When Cloud asks Tifa if she knows him, she says she doesn't, and when Cloud remarks that she doesn't sound so sure, she snaps at him, adamantly denying it. No, it's just that hearing that story about Zack leaving to join Soldier reminded her of Cloud is all, and she's just glad that of all the boys who went off to join Soldier, he made it home okay. She thanks him for always caring about her. But what about Aerith? Remember that first boy she liked that wasn't Soldier? That was Zack. 5 years ago, he went on a mission and never came back. She wonders what happened, but can't be sure. The party moves on. The group finally returns to Nibelheim after all of this time, and it's still standing. Like nothing ever happened. And everything feels wrong. This place burned to the ground. Just about everyone died. Cloud saw it, Tifa saw it, so why is it still standing? And who are these new people standing in their places, acting as if nothing happened? Even Cloud and Tifa's homes have been rebuilt. When Cloud and the party question the townspeople about Nibelheim, they have nothing to say. They deny that the village ever burned to the ground to begin with. What the hell? Also throughout the town are strange, sickly, black-cloaked figures with number tattoos, all murmuring something about reunion and Sephiroth. What does this mean? Okay, now things are getting weird. So what happened? Well, by finding a report from Dr. Hojo and Tifa's house, we see the cloaked men referred to as copies, but little else about them. We also learn that Shinra rebuilt the town from the ground up and hired new people to replace the townfolk. The whole incident was covered up by Shinra. Crazy. So the party goes to the same place Sephiroth went to for answers, and there they find him. Sephiroth asks Cloud if he's going to join the reunion, where Jenova will once again become the calamity from the sky. But that doesn't make sense to Cloud. Wasn't Jenova a Cetra? Sephiroth condescendingly dismisses Cloud and tells him that he's not eligible to join them, but that, should he reawaken, he should join them up north. With that, he flies off, once again leaving us with more questions than answers. Nevertheless, we have a path to follow, and we must follow it. Before we leave the underground, we open an optional hidden door in the basement, where we awaken one of the coolest characters in the game from a deep slumber in a coffin, Vincent Valentine. We learn that years ago he was a member of the Turks, the Shinra investigative sector that performs Black Ops. We've seen multiple current members of the Turks throughout the game as recurring villains, Sung, Reno, Rude, and Elena, but I haven't talked about them yet in specific because this video is already long enough as is, sorry. Though Vincent neglects to tell most details of his past. As with most characters that comes later, he reveals something major about Sephiroth. His mother was not Jenova, but a woman he loved, Lucrezia, who was an assistant to Professor Gast, the man who started the Jenova project. After deliberation, he decides to join the party to hunt down Dr. Hojo. My biggest criticism of Vincent is that there isn't more of him. He's an undead, gunslinging badass who can turn into a monster due to genetic experimentation. He's awesome, dude. Because he's an optional character, he doesn't get nearly as much spotlight as he deserves. And that's a damn shame. He deserves more moments in the plot to shine. Even Yuffie, the other side character, had an elaborate side quest devoted to her. He does have an optional side quest that deepens his connection to Shinra, Sephiroth, and other key characters, but I just wanted to see more of that. He's also so violently 90s that I just love him. Great character. Then finally, to round out the party, we've got Sid Highwind. I love Sid. Like Barrett, he's gruff and tough with a chip on his shoulder. He's a pilot that wanted to be the first man in space, but got his dreams ruined, and since then he's been bitter. Despite being the last member of the party to join, he instantly begins to take on a pivotal role, and at one point even becomes leader of the party, and it all feels natural. He may not always be easy to get along with all the time, but he's even harder not to love. Each character in the roster adds something to the game and the experience. Having to only have 3 of them in your active party at a time is tough, but you always get the sense that they're all with you. I love seeing their interactions, and wanting to see how certain characters react to certain scenarios makes me want to play the game all over again. A ragtag, diverse group of individuals with different looks, backstories, personalities, powers, and abilities, each and every one of them adds something to the story and brings something unique to the table. Despite their differences, they come together for a common goal to save the world. Tetsuya Nomura's character designs in this game all across the board are stellar. Each one is not only visually interesting and unique, but gives us a clear understanding of the characters. I love it. And on top of that, every character has their own individual theme song that fits their character and gives a feel for them. Which is why, when one of the party members is lost, it gives a real sense of tragedy. And that is coming soon. Spoilers, people! From here on out, non-stop spoilers. The story is about to get a little crazy. Flash forward to the Temple of the Ancients, where we learn the truth about Sephiroth's evil master plan. Sephiroth plans to become one with the planet by using a powerful black materia, Meteor, to wound the planet so deeply, so fatally, that a massive amount of energy from the planet's lifestream would be summoned to heal that wound. And in that moment, he will absorb the energy for himself, becoming one with the planet, an all-powerful, godlike being. The group gets the black materia from the temple before Sephiroth can, only to play right into his hands. Suddenly, Sephiroth reappears and gives Cloud orders, and, for some reason, in a strange twist, he is unable to resist and hands Sephiroth the black materia, the key to ultimate destruction. Then, in an outburst, he physically assaults Aerith when she tries to comfort him and has to be stopped by the other party members. What the hell just happened? When he awakens, he finds himself in a dreamlike state with Aerith, who comforts him and lets him know it's all going to be okay. Despite the dire situation that just unfolded, she is calm, at peace, optimistic, and happy. And in a way, while it is comforting, it is strangely off-putting, a little scary even. She assures Cloud that she doesn't blame him for anything and lets him know that she's on her way to the city of the Ancients. Suddenly, her mind is clear. She knows what she must do. And just as she leaves, Sephiroth enters the picture, declaring she must be stopped before she interferes with his plans. And then Cloud awakens surrounded by Barrett and Tifa. He's filled with self-doubt. They don't know what happened, but they do know that they have to follow after her, and so they do. Once again, despite the uncertainties, the party pushes on because they have a greater task at hand that requires their immediate focus and attention. They make their way to the city of the Ancients and find Aerith praying at the altar. And as Cloud makes his approach, suddenly the feeling takes over again. No, not again! He raises his sword to strike down Aerith. No, no! His friends call out to him, beg him to stop. And then he stops, and the feeling subsides, and there is a moment of peace. And then it happens. The most well-known spoiler in the game, possibly any game. Hell, I first heard of Final Fantasy VII through a top 10 list with this scene. Aerith's death. One of the most iconic deaths in video game history, and it makes sense why. Aerith Gainsborough was a ray of sunshine. She picked Cloud up when he was down. She had the most beautiful house in the slums of Midgar where she'd grow and sell flowers in a place where everything else was grimy and run down. She was kind, hopeful, uplifting, and lots of fun to be around with a great sense of humor. And despite seemingly being jealous of each other at first and competing for Cloud's affection, Tifa and Aerith became best friends. And both are such good romantic options that you can understand why Cloud would choose either one, and why the debate rages on all of these years later on who's the better girl. The answer is obviously Tifa though, guys, as I'll explain later. At least for Cloud. We love Aerith. Everyone loves Aerith. She's the party's mage, and her limit break, her healing wind, is one of the most helpful in the game. She's unique as a person and in combat, and when you're with her in combat, you always have that hope that when you're in a bind, she'll come and heal you. And then, just like that, she's ripped from you. Gone. Forever. And during those later rough boss fights when you need that healing wind the most, you'll never have it. That added comfort, that ease, that helping hand has been snubbed out forever. And that's what it's like to lose someone you love. You know, you think of the things they used to provide for you that will never be there anymore. Of how they would have reacted to this situation, or what they could have added here and there, and they never will again. Because they're gone. And that empty hole can't be filled. This effect is further enhanced by the gameplay, because you fought with her and played as her in combat and interacted with her directly through the gameplay. You invested time and effort into her and leveling her up, and because of that, your attachment to her felt so much more personal. This is yet another example of using gameplay to further enhance a story and add a personal touch. Her unique touch that she brought to the table is gone, now only a fond memory that you carry on. And while the memory is nice, being without her hurts all the more, and that's what real loss is like. Another reason why this loss feels so real is because it was inspired by producer Hironobu Sakaguchi's real-life loss of his mother, and he wanted that real feeling of loss replicated in the game, and he succeeded. Even after her initial death, her theme plays over the following boss fight and continues after the fact, all-encompassing. The happy, uplifting tone it once carried now carries a more somber one, a feeling of loss. All party members react in their own way. Another personal stamp, another personal touch. before Cloud picks her up and carries her to lay her to rest. I knew it was coming, and I still damn near cried during this scene. It wasn't her death, but the moments that followed that really got to me. The music, everyone's reactions, and the final act of laying her to rest really got to me. It just feels so real. I'm not afraid to admit it. I damn near cried a bit. This may be the most well-known spoiler in the game, but it is by no means the biggest or most shocking twist that the game has to offer. No, that comes later. In a way, me knowing the spoiler was almost a good thing, because it distracted me from what was coming. And what was coming would shock me to my very core. It's fitting then that the next segment of the game should be in the cold, snowy mountains as they make their way up to the northern crater. There is a somber, palpable tone among these characters as they trek through the cold, icy mountains following Aerith's death. Along the way, they learn more about her past and an optional side quest that, in my opinion, shouldn't be because it gives crucial story information and key pieces to the puzzle. Well, okay, it's more of an information dump than a side quest, but still. I may have missed this on my initial playthrough, but I don't remember. Regardless, I know now. The party discovers Dr. Gast's lab, and therein, tapes he made after he left Shinra to be with his wife Ifalna, the last surviving pureblood Cetra, to start a family with her. These tapes contain key information explaining the truth about Aerith, her parents, the Cetra, Jenova, and things called weapons, and the information gathered here will come into play very soon. In a twist, some of the scientific discoveries made here by Dr. Gast through interviewing Ifalna, Aerith's mom, contain details that directly contradict the Shinra files read by Sephiroth from Shinra Manor. For you see, the scientists were wrong about Jenova. Jenova, the 2,000-year-old body found in the ice, was not a Cetra, but the calamity from the sky itself that wounded the planet so deeply and wiped out most of the Cetra. It was the alien creature that crash-landed to Earth on a meteorite, creating a giant wound that resulted in the northern crater, devastating the land and the planet. The Cetra rushed in to save the planet that cried out in pain, and the calamity took the form of the Cetra's loved ones, ghosts from their pasts, and approached them with familiar faces, deceived them, and infected them with the virus that made them lose their minds and turn into monsters. So everything Sephiroth did in Nibelheim, the atrocities he committed on behalf of the Cetra, the rage he felt, he inadvertently committed on behalf of their killer. Not humanity, but the calamity from the sky itself, his own mother, Jenova, who was the real monster that doomed the Cetra to death. And as a defense mechanism, the planet created weapons, giant kaiju made with the express purpose of defeating Jenova. But by the time they were ready, they were too late, as the last of the Cetra fought back and imprisoned Jenova. And so the weapons too lie dormant within the planet, to be awakened when needed. And then, of course, Hojo and Shinra troops burst in an attempt to capture Aerith and her parents as test subjects. Her father was killed, and mother fatally injured in her escape to Midgar with Aerith, where in her dying breath, she was given to her adopted mother. And just like that, we've come full circle on Aerith's life, and the rest, as they say, is history. But even still, none of this is the shocking twist that I was referring to earlier. Not even close. But get ready, because here it comes. We reach the northern crater, and this is it. The moment we've been building up to for so long, when we finally get to face Sephiroth. And it's the moment the entire game changes forever. As we reach the northern crater, we follow several cloaked figures just like the ones we saw in Nibelheim murmuring about reunion, as they march toward a center point, mindlessly, cult-like, like they're being called. Many collapsing dead along the way. The remaining few reach Sephiroth only to be struck down by him right before our eyes. Cloud calls out to him, and Sephiroth declares that his body has outlived its usefulness and disappears. And a voice calls out to Cloud, telling him,
"Our purpose is to deliver the black materia to our master." "Our? We who carry Jenova cells. And who is this master?" "Why, Sephiroth, of course."
And just like that, Sephiroth strikes down from the sky, before becoming a monster to fight them. And after they win, the realization hits. What they were following this whole time wasn't the real Sephiroth. And in its wake, it leaves behind black materia. But given what happened last time, Tifa suggests that Cloud hand the materia to someone else to hold on to, and he agrees. Whether it be Red 13 or Barret is the player's choice. And while the rest hang back, Cloud, Tifa, and a third companion of your choice head forth to face Sephiroth, and things will never be the same again. For you see, it's not just the future that changes forever, but the past. as suddenly they cross through a white void back into Nibelheim. No, this is just an illusion created by Sephiroth. No more tricks. Cloud knows this, but for some reason Tifa feels a sense of unease. Just as in the flashback before, Sephiroth enters Nibelheim, followed by 2 infantrymen and... not Cloud? Some soldier with Cloud's Buster Sword and black spiky hair? Cloud's not convinced. It's obviously just gaslighting. Some sadistic trick from Sephiroth to mess with Cloud's head again. He was there. He lived it. We lived it. We as the player. We saw it. And yet Tifa, who was also there, always supportive of Cloud, always a voice of reason, is feeling strangely uneasy. Why? And then Sephiroth lays it out. Cloud was never in Nibelheim. No. Instead, he was created by Dr. Hojo in his lab using Genova cells mixed with Mako energy after Nibelheim was burned to the ground. He's a failed Sephiroth clone, just like the ones in black cloaks. Only Cloud wasn't even given a number. I remember slamming my desk and audibly yelling out, "What?" when I saw the word Sephiroth clone appear on screen. I was shocked. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. After all of this time, you mean to tell me this was all a lie? That he was all a clone? How could I not have seen this coming? I wish I had recorded my reaction. Hold on. That makes no sense. Tifa has memories of Cloud, and Cloud has memories of her and Nibelheim. I mean, sure, he has gaps in his memory, but to say he never existed? That's crazy. Cloud exists. And as Tifa desperately cries out for Cloud to cover his eyes and ears, Sephiroth explains. Genova cells grant the ability to take on the form, voice, and mannerisms of others based on memories. Memories like, for example, a boy from Tifa's childhood. One named Cloud. One who promised to save her if she was ever in a bind. One she was waiting on to return home. Hell, earlier we just saw Sephiroth or Genova, or whatever it was, shift form using Genova cells. We've seen this in action. And then he shows him the picture from the mountain. Remember that? Well, here it is again. Only this time, Cloud isn't there. And in his place, that same soldier. No, it's still an illusion. It has to be. But then, why is Tifa reacting this way? And why doesn't he remember such key details in his life like joining Soldier? Tifa appears before Red 13 or Barrett, requesting the black materia, and they hand it off to her before she transforms back into Sephiroth, revealing another illusion. Just like Genova came to the Cetra with familiar faces and deceived them, she did so again now. Is this Genova or is it Sephiroth? Does it even matter at this point? Well, we know it ain't Tifa. And so Cloud and Tifa appear at the scene just as Dr. Hojo and the other Shinra heads arrive, and it is before him that we see Cloud, broken and full of self-doubt, apologize to Tifa for not being the Cloud she thought he was before groveling to Hojo, begging for a lab experiment number. He is so broken, so battered, so pathetic, so at a loss for an identity that he'll take an experiment number, anything as a name, an identity, some form of validity or recognition. He may not be worthy of being Cloud or even worthy of Tifa, but a lab number? And Hojo cruelly strikes him down. No, he's not even worthy of a number. For Cloud, or whoever he is nothing more than a failure. But he did succeed in proving Hojo's hypothesis. Cloud didn't journey here on his own. No, he, like all of the other Sephiroth clones we saw in Cloaks, was drawn here, to the center, to Genova, to the reunion. The only difference is that Cloud believed he was his own individual. He believed he had free will, memories, a life, a noble reason for being here. But alas, as Sephiroth called him, he was nothing more than a puppet on a string. Only the puppet master wasn't Genova, but Sephiroth himself. We, the players, never had free will. We only believed we did. We were always destined, always drawn to come here. Despite being the ones playing the game, we were never in control. Despite all of our victories, all of our triumphs, all of our fights against Sephiroth and Genova, we were ultimately on a set path, playing right into their hands all along. Cloud was never a hero or a rebel. He was just a puppet of our main villain. And as Hojo relays everything, Cloud, much like his entire world, is turned upside down. I love this visual metaphor here, and there are a lot of other great ones throughout the game as well. And where is Sephiroth? The real Sephiroth? Well, finally after all this time we see him, as he appears in the cavern in a crystalline container, half of his body missing in a comatose state, and once again, Sephiroth manipulates Cloud into giving him the black materia. Despite all of the heroics he displays and the good in his heart, when the moment comes, Cloud hands Sephiroth the power of ultimate destruction yet again. And just as Cloud's entire identity and world shatters, so too does the earth beneath his feet, and he falls through. Everyone else narrowly escapes as weapons emerge from the planet. Wow, what a twist. Remember, the one thing we knew about Cloud, the one thing the game set in stone to begin with, was that he was an ex-soldier. It wasn't just the characters that lied to us, nor Cloud's false memories. No, the game lied to us, or at least aided Cloud in doing so. And the memories we lived in Nibelheim? Did we even live that? Or were we creating those memories? Is that why Tifa was questioning us so much? Is that why we had doubts about such trivial details? Because we were creating those details, those memories ourselves? Were we, as the player, aiding in Cloud's delusions? We don't know for sure, but we do know one thing. Cloud Strife is an unreliable narrator, and he cannot be trusted. This shocking revelation recontextualizes everything up until this point and changes everything about the past and future. And, as with every major reveal of this nature, we are left desperate with more questions than answers. And just as we lost our hero, our threat is now more powerful than ever before, with newer, unforeseen ones emerging from the planet as well. This is crazy. I want to defeat Sephiroth! I want to find out what happened to Cloud! I want answers, damn it! And as everyone flies away from the destruction, we fade into black. An eerie noise starts playing. And we see Cloud sitting in the darkness with his head down. Tifa calls out to him, prompting him to get up and walk away, disappearing into the darkness. She desperately chases after him, calling his name to no avail. He's already gone, and she collapses.
I didn't know what to do. I've always been like that.
And we fade into the Sector 7 train station as Tifa walks up to see Cloud seated on the ground, just like he was in the darkness, unresponsive to the dog and Shinra guard, who takes pity on him before walking away. Immediately, her first instinct, she rushes to help him and puts her hand on his head, asking if he's alright. And he looks up at her, and after a moment, he thinks he recognizes her. And after saying her name a few times, he suddenly springs up and emphatically affirms that he does, his tone completely shifting. He's a new man! And after a moment of confusion, she recognizes him excitedly. She couldn't believe it. Cloud! He's alive and he's back after all of these years! And despite the clear red flags, she engages him excitedly. And when she asks him how long it had been since they last saw each other, he recoils, holding his head back just like he did at the reactor and in other similar incidents, scaring Tifa before he snaps right back. 5 years. And when Cloud asks a clearly upset Tifa what's wrong, she brushes it off. The truth is, it had actually been 7 years, but Tifa keeps that detail to herself. Cloud tells her that he joined Soldier but left after the Sephiroth incident in Nibelheim and was now a jack of all trades. But something was off. When Cloud would speak about his time in Soldier, he wouldn't remember some things he should, and would remember others he shouldn't.
I tried to figure it out, but anytime I brought it up, it was like darkness came over you. You were drifting somewhere far away. It scared me.
I mean, look at how he reacted when she simply asked how many years it had been. And so she didn't know what to do. She just needed more time. And that's why she told him about the Avalanche job. She wanted to be by his side to keep an eye on him. Remember Tifa's ... lines when Cloud was recounting the Nibelheim incident? They're here in this interaction too. They're used to convey her doubts, her fear of speaking, and saying what she really feels. Now suddenly her weird behavior from earlier starts to make sense. When Cloud first starts interacting with her at the train station, it's bizarre, almost like he's learning to be human, to be Cloud. And as things go on, you now start to wonder, like Tifa, if he was ever Cloud at all. Fade into bright light as Tifa awakens in a Shinra airship, where she and the party are planned to be executed on live television. They bust out and Sid pilots them off the airship with one of his own, the High Wind. Tifa takes command of the party until they hear that Cloud has been washed ashore in a small town. He's alive! And so they rush to him, and what they find is a brutal sight to behold. Cloud, catatonic, weak, in agony, and totally unable to speak, is bound to a wheelchair being looked after. When he fell into the lifestream, the lifeblood and life energy running through the planet, he was poisoned by the massive amount of it, and now the once powerful ex-soldier is reduced to this, and it breaks Tifa's heart. She vows to stay by his side until he heals, while Sid takes control of the rest of the party. And upon their return from several missions, it happens. A weapon attacks, and the resulting storm and destruction causes a cataclysmic earthquake that opens up the planet and sends Cloud and Tifa hurtling down into the lifestream below. And the resulting sequence is what takes this game to the next level in terms of characters and storytelling. This might be my favorite sequence in the entire game. It is brilliant. All of this time, we've had these questions raised in our mind, and every time we're about to get an answer, we get ripped away from it. And finally, we get a moment where we get to really sit down with Cloud, crack open that messed up mind, and peer into his fractured psyche and try and put him together using his memories and just figuring out what's going on. I mean, is he even Cloud? Do we even know who he is at this point? Well, now, finally, we get to sift through the ashes and just put him back together and figure him out. And it's a brilliant sequence. I mean, is he even Cloud? We don't know, but we're about to find out. In this moment, despite it being about Cloud and his memories, we don't play as him. He's too broken at this point. He's too unwhole. I mean, we don't even know if it is Cloud. And he's an unreliable narrator. Instead, we play as the childhood friend, the potential love interest, someone who's been there from the beginning. And it's through her that we sift through the ashes of both Nibelheim and Cloud's fractured mind to find out the truth. It's ironic. Cloud promised he'd help her if she was ever in a bind, and yet in this moment, she's the one saving him. As soon as she saw him in that wheelchair, in a bind, she jumped in to aid him with no hesitation, because that's who Tifa is. She's a nurturer and a loyal friend. Here we learn so much more about both of them. Here it finally starts to make sense. It's like a therapy session for both of them, and a much needed one after everything they've been through. When she falls into the life stream, Tifa starts in darkness, and then we see the world around her, a strange, ethereal, fractured version of Nibelheim, and an ethereal Cloud above her, then several others. And so, through gameplay, you, as Tifa, are sifting through multiple fractured, broken, unwhole versions of Cloud to extract what you can and put him back together. Piece by piece, memory by memory, truth by truth. It's a unique, brilliant, and unforgettable sequence that launches the game into a higher stratosphere of quality. You, as the player, get to explore and connect the pieces until they fit, exploring different aspects of Cloud and Tifa's backstories until they intertwine. Let's get back to the beginning. Before Nibelheim, the first memory of Cloud and Tifa together on the water tower. It happened. They both remember that. And that's why Tifa still believes this is the same Cloud. Only he doesn't. So what's wrong? What's missing here? Earlier, when Cloud faltered, he failed to recollect his reasons for joining Soldier. Finally, he recalls it. He was devastated. He wanted to be noticed and wanted to become stronger like the others so he could be respected by her. But why? Weren't they already friends? Come to think of it, what was their friendship even like? We hear talk of it, but we haven't seen any memories of them prior to the water tower. We always just kind of assumed they were close ever since childhood because they were next door neighbors, and that's what we were led to believe. But is that even true? Let's go back and examine. And so they look through a window, both physical and metaphorical, into a moment in her childhood bedroom. Totally forgot about that detail as I was revisiting this scene for the script. Another visual metaphor. I love it. It's so good. And here we see Cloud come into Tifa's room for the first time. Tifa was mourning in her room. She had just lost her mother and was surrounded by 3 other boys, her friends, comforting her. And Cloud came by to see her. It's at this point a realization strikes them. They were never really close friends. Tifa doesn't even really remember them hanging out at all before the water tower, and that's where Cloud reveals that he was always a loner. always wanting to play with the other kids but upset he never got invited to hang out. And so he got angry and grew a superiority complex, thinking he was above the other dumb kids while still hanging around near them, hoping they'd call out to him and invite him to join them. In truth, he was too awkward but also too stubborn to admit it, and so he became bitter, rebellious. Then when Tifa's mom died, in her grief, she got the belief that on the other side of Mount Nibel she'd find her mother somehow, and so Cloud followed behind her and the other boys on the mountain. When the other boys chickened out at the bridge, Cloud, like Tifa, was braver than the others, and still followed, undeterred. And when she missed a step, Cloud rushed in to help her but failed to make it in time, and they both fell off the cliff. And while he only grazed his knee, she fell into a coma for 7 days. Tifa's father berated Cloud and blamed him for everything. And in that moment, Cloud felt weak, powerless, like a failure. He thought Tifa blamed him, and he'd lash out at people, get into fights, and become even more of a loner. His attempt to be strong, to do the right thing, to help a girl in need, backfired miserably, and he only ended up feeling weaker, angrier, and like more of an outcast and a loner than he already was. And then he heard about Sephiroth, and set his ambitions. He was too weak to help Tifa. He couldn't save her, but now he could be strong like him and save people. And when he reached out to Tifa to meet her, she was surprised he reached out, and he was surprised she even showed up. They had never really talked before. That was the first and only real time they ever got to know each other. Through their past, they awakened memories about each other and deepened their relationship. If they both have these shared memories from when Cloud was 8, which was years before the Nibelheim incident when he was 16, then he must be real. Okay, but why explore such minute details about their personal lives? Who cares how close Cloud and Tifa were as kids? What does it have to do with the story? What does it say about Cloud's character, or Tifa's, or their relationship, or where they are now? Why stop all of that climactic, world-ending stuff in the story to focus on this? On their own, these childhood details would have been boring if they were shown right out of the gate. But because they are played up as an important character reveal, as part of a twist, suddenly they become incredibly interesting. Something to ponder. This is a lesson in framing. Would you have cared about the exact details of their friendship, or the incident at the bridge, if it wasn't for all this build-up, this mystery? Probably not. But at this point, this far into the game, now that you're this attached, you're desperate for every detail you can get and cling on to it for dear life. Now that everything about Cloud and Tifa is called into question, we'll take any answer, any bit of information we can get, and see where it leads. Because we want to get to the bottom of this mystery. Not just for the story, but because we care about them. We want them to be okay. We've now been in the shoes of both Cloud and Tifa. We care about them because in a way we are them. Hell, I'm dressed like one of them, and I am not dressing as Tifa. Okay, so we know more about Cloud and Tifa's friendship history, we have a clearer view of why Cloud joined Soldier, we have more context about the water tower scene, but that still doesn't answer any of our main questions. Who is Cloud, and what the hell happened at Nibelheim? We've seen Cloud's recollection of the Nibelheim incident, and the version Sephiroth told, but what about Tifa's recollection? As she revisits Cloud's previous recollection of the Nibelheim incident, she compares it with her own and confesses that she's been afraid of saying anything the entire time, ever afraid of pushing Cloud away. But now she admits the shocking truth. Cloud was never there at Nibelheim 5 years ago. Contradictory to Cloud's memory, she was waiting there at the gate for him, but he never came. Instead came Sephiroth, who she recalls being cold with a sense of foreboding about him, followed by the other soldier seen earlier, and 2 infantrymen. No Cloud. Flashback, the reactor. Tifa is sliced down by Sephiroth, and the soldier rushes in past her to fight Sephiroth, and suddenly Cloud remembers. Zack. His name was Zack. Yes! Tifa confirms that's true. Cloud remembers. Yes, the very same Zack we heard about earlier, the one Aerith liked. And now Tifa's earlier reaction starts to make sense. She lied. She did know him. It's all coming full circle. But how does Cloud remember Zack being there? She never told him. He wasn't there in Nibelheim that day. So how does he know? How does he remember? Bam! Zack is knocked flying backward by Sephiroth, only for the remaining Shinra infantrymen to pick up his Buster Sword and bravely charge Sephiroth and stab him, screaming for vengeance for his mother, for Tifa, for his village, screaming that he respected him, that he admired him. And as Sephiroth, a man with the complex of a god, the greatest soldier there ever was, is caught off guard and bleeds at the hands of a mere infantryman, a nobody NPC who he and the audience forgot was even there, he asks, "Who are you?" Who is he? This faceless nobody, this same model NPC grunt you've seen and taken out countless times throughout the game, who managed to get the jump on the greatest threat you've ever faced. Who is he? Underneath that helmet, there lies the heart of a true hero, an angry cry for vengeance, a sense of betrayal, and a familiar head of blonde spiky hair. That's right, ladies and gentlemen! Underneath that helmet lies Cloud Strife, the real Cloud Strife. Remember that one infantryman that was with them from the start in Nibelheim? No, not the one that died. The other one? I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. But that was Cloud Strife. He was there! In every version of the story, from every perspective, he's been there. Why didn't he remember getting into soldier? Because he never did. And he swore he wouldn't return to Nibelheim until he became a soldier, like Sephiroth. He made a declaration. He promised Tifa. And he failed. Just like he failed to save her at Mount Nibel. He gave it his all and ended up being a low-level infantryman. And in his shame, he hid under a helmet, for he didn't want anyone to see his failure. Nonetheless, despite the lack of Mako energy flowing through him, despite not joining the soldier program, he still got the jump on Sephiroth, who underestimated and dismissed Cloud the same way he himself did, the same way we did. And most importantly of all, he did keep his promise to Tifa. He showed up when she was in a bind and he saved her. She did experience being rescued by a hero, only she didn't even remember it. Neither of them did, until now. Sephiroth carries Jenova's severed head, being too weak to carry the full body. Hence the headless body we saw at Shinra HQ earlier. Beheading his own mother. Son of the year right there. Jokes aside, given Jenova's biology, we know she'll be fine, as the cells of Jenova, as Hojo hypothesized and later proved, will come together again. But it's still funny. He cut his own mom's head off, like he's a messed up kid. He's a really real special kid, that one. Go keeper. And with a wounded Zack's guiding words, Cloud rushes to finish Sephiroth. Cloud comes from behind Sephiroth and is impaled by him and raised up high, taunted by Sephiroth. Who is he, a mere grunt, to challenge the son of Jenova, the world's greatest soldier, a man so high above humanity with a mission to return his mother to the Promised Land? Who is he? In that moment, despite all of his failings, he proves that he is a man. No, not even. A 16-year-old with the strength, the determination to, if only for a moment, defy a god. And for one moment, just one moment, he does. He lifts Sephiroth with his own sword and, using every last bit of strength and determination he has, to Sephiroth's arrogant bewilderment, casts him aside and down into the pit in the life stream below. What happened 5 years ago? Cloud Strife, a man of much lesser power and status than he thought, exuded great power and did what he never thought he could. He defeated Sephiroth. When he recalled the story earlier, he drew a blank at the end. Considering the sheer strength Sephiroth possessed, he doubted he could have defeated him. But he was wrong. He did the impossible. He did defeat Sephiroth, as a mere infantryman no less. But in his crippling self-doubt, he deluded himself from his greatest achievement, his greatest victory. And thus, he viewed himself as less of a man. This whole time, we and our characters have had this vision in our heads of Sephiroth being this unstoppable threat. But the truth is he has been stopped by a 16-year-old infantryman Cloud no less. Even though this happened way earlier, the reason we don't learn about this until now is because at this point now it actually feels rewarding. It feels earned. After all of this time of fearing Sephiroth, we finally know he can be defeated, and this knowledge comes at a pivotal point in Cloud's character arc. By hiding this information and revealing it later, it becomes way more valuable. Like Cloud, we were deprived of knowledge that had eluded us for far too long, and now, when he's at his lowest, when he needs it most, it reignites a spark in him and gives him the strength and the hope to carry on toward his final victory. And with that conclusion, all of the disparate versions of Cloud merge together as one, and Cloud Strife is finally, after all of this time, reborn and whole again, as is Tifa. The biggest criticism of Tifa's character is that she lies to Cloud, or is too passive, But when you actually peel back the layers of her character, it starts to make sense why she acts the way she does. Tifa is not a flawless character. She's tough, she's sweet, she's kind and selfless, but she's not perfect. She's very vulnerable. And vulnerability isn't necessarily a bad thing. Hell, opening up to people can be good. But when someone you love refuses to open up, that becomes a problem. See, Tifa lost everything in Nibelheim. Absolutely everything. And when she tried to get revenge for her murdered father, she was struck down with ease. Even her master, Zangan, as we'll learn later, ultimately did not stick around for her long after Nibelheim, leaving her alone in Midgar. Nevertheless, she took her tragic situation and made something of it, a new beginning. And within 5 years of losing everything, she, at only 21 years old, having started with nothing, was now the owner of the Seventh Heaven Bar, which also housed the secret headquarters of Avalanche, of which she was one of the most valuable members. And she is not someone to be underestimated. She's smart and hardworking and gets stuff done, which is why her fears and resulting failure to acknowledge the issues with Cloud become all the more striking. She had lost everything and had fully moved on from Nibelheim. Her childhood home with all of her friends and family was destroyed, burned to ashes. The villagers, including her own father, slain before her eyes, and she was never able to avenge them. And then, from her past, after all of this time, comes a boy she hadn't seen in years, now a grown man who seemingly accomplished his dreams. The boy who promised her that if she was ever in a bind, he'd come and rescue her. And when she needed rescuing most, he wasn't there. And yet maybe, on some level, she was still holding out on him, her hero, to rescue her when she needs help. And now an adult woman more than capable of defending herself, here he stands before her, and her past comes rushing back to her. All of these warm, intense feelings fill her. Her knight in shining armor has returned, and in Cloud she sees all these warm childhood memories of Nibelheim manifest. And despite the red flags, she clings to him tightly. She projects all of her fond childhood memories and desire to be rescued onto him. She's so thrilled, so relieved to see anyone she knew from Nibelheim still alive that she overlooks all of the inconsistencies. In fact, she's so desperate that she actually fights through the inconsistencies, against her own memories and innate sense of logic and reasoning. She gaslights herself into believing what he says is true because she so desperately doesn't want to lose him. Not again. She already lost everyone she loved. And yet, she's frustrated because the close bond she wants to have comes with a stiff barrier, and whenever she tries to push through, something strange happens with him. Like it hurts him, turns him away. Instead of turning him closer to her, her attempts to learn more about him, to challenge him, to get to know him, only turn him away. And so she's left in this constant state of limbo, of paranoia, of frustration, and in some ways she's even more alone, desperately clinging not to a man, but pieces of a man, a boy who she barely even knew from childhood, and the hopes and dreams and memories that she projects onto him. When she loses everything for a second time after the plate is dropped on Sector 7, she clings to him tighter. The scene of her crying into Cloud's arms is probably my favorite scene in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Finally, when she is forced to confront the possible truth about Cloud, she cracks, much like he does, for she now has to confront the flaws and the lies within herself that allowed these things to drag on for so long. Cloud's reappearance brought back a lot of good memories, a childhood crush, a sense of reunion, no, not that kind, and a sense of security. But it also brought back a lot of trauma and painful memories to the surface. Ultimately, the trade-off would have been good if he was a sufficient comfort for her, but he wasn't. She was alone, painfully alone, during and after Nibelheim, and yet she was supposed to believe now that this guy who wasn't there was? So she gaslit herself into believing he was there to make it easier. But him having been there did nothing for her. She couldn't talk to him about their shared trauma, she couldn't confide in him, and ultimately, in some ways, while it was nice to have him back, in others it was like he wasn't there at all. Finally, she has to face her fears, face Cloud, and only by fully confronting everything are she and Cloud finally able to get to the truth. And now, with everything sorted, she gets everything she wants in him. She gets her friend, a real friend. She gets someone to confide in who shares her trauma and her past. She gets her hero and potential lover. Now, thanks to her help, she and Cloud can properly heal. Tifa is a great woman, and she makes Cloud a better man. She's a fighter, fueled by her passion and desires to help others, fight evil, and make the world a better place. She's tough as nails and a bit of a tomboy, but she's still feminine. She's kind, sweet, nurturing, and compassionate. She's selfless and a loyal friend and partner. And despite being perfectly capable of defending and providing for herself and standing alone, she never wanted to be alone. And deep down, she still housed that feminine desire to have a strong man be there to save her. And there's nothing wrong with that. And while it took some work, and will likely take more, she finally earned that. And earned him, by first confronting the problems within herself that prevented her from getting through to him. They both become better people through this and heal each other. They embrace, and with that, they return from the lifestream back to their friends, ready to continue their journey back stronger and better than ever. And for the first time since his identity crisis began, Cloud takes control of the party, and we, as the player, take back control of Cloud. Well, they're almost whole again, and this is where my biggest, most major critique of the game lies. See, there's this optional side quest that, in my opinion, should not be optional, because it contains this last bit of crucial information pertaining to Cloud and Zack's backstory. See, when I was playing through the game, Cloud and Tifa make it up from the livestream, and they act like, that's it, it's all sorted out, we're gonna keep going. And even though I had these questions, I guess I kinda had the assumption that they'd be figured out through the main narrative. And I assume that whatever information about Zack, all the puzzle pieces that I don't have, would, like the livestream sequence, be sorted out through the main story. I didn't think that they'd leave out such crucial information about the game's main character, but they do. And it's a problem because I had to learn this after the fact. And so, for everyone watching this video, if for some reason you haven't played the game yet, when you do, after you finish the livestream sequence, make sure you go to Nibelheim because you have some crucial information lying there. Again, this should be mandatory. Now, what is this piece of Cloud's backstory? Why is it so important? Well, because it finally fully contextualizes his past and his character arc as a whole. So again, crucial puzzle piece, should have been mandatory, but I'm going to treat it as such right now. Let's get into it. So it turns out that when you return to Nibelheim, you find a lot of interesting information. So one thing I didn't know about until I was writing this review and revisiting the game is that you can actually find a really cool hidden letter in Tifa's room from her martial arts master Zangan. So in the letter, he reveals that he's the one that rescued Tifa from the reactor, and he also reveals that he witnessed Hojo and Shinra troopers come in and round up any survivors from the experiments. He carried her to Midgar, healing her as much as he could along the way until he finally left her with a doctor there that he knew he could trust. It's a nice bit of backstory that I didn't know about. But more importantly, when you revisit the basement of Shinra Manor, you get the aforementioned final piece of the puzzle that is Cloud's broken mind and mysterious broken past. You learn that they passed out at the Nibelheim reactor and were captured by Shinra and experimented on by Hojo, being kept in test chambers in the basement of the Shinra Manor. After years in these test chambers being fed and kept alive and in stasis, Zack breaks free and frees Cloud as well. While Zack, who has already been powered up with Mako energy due to being in Soldier, is able to walk out fine, Cloud is completely catatonic due to the Mako poisoning, and thus he has to be carried out of Nibelheim by Zack, who puts him in a soldier uniform in the process. The two make their way to Midgar, where Zack expresses his hopes of reuniting with Aerith. Along the way, Zack comes to the realization that they'll need a new way to make a living, and so he decides he'll be a jack of all trades, doing whatever kind of work he can for hire using all of the skills he picked up in Soldier to make money. And he tells Cloud he should do the same. They'll do it together, as friends, partners. However, this future never comes to pass, as just as the two near Midgar, they are chased down and ambushed by Shinra troops. As Zack drags Cloud to safety and fights back, he is ruthlessly gunned down and killed by the infantrymen, who then leave the helplessly catatonic Cloud lying there for dead. After the troops leave, Cloud finds the strength to crawl to his dear friend, mourns him, grabs his sword, looks over the cliff down at Midgar, and screams out. In this moment, through the trauma of losing his best friend and the experimentations he's been put through, accompanied by everything else, Cloud's mind breaks, his psyche forever fractured, and the Genova cells within him aid him in fixing it in their own way, forming a new persona, new memories. One where, instead of failing to join Soldier and losing Zack, he becomes Zack. He takes on Zack's memories and traits as his own, becoming his living legacy, except a little too literally. Cloud takes the best parts of himself and keeps them, revising them where he feels needed, and adding the best parts of Zack to fill in the gaps where he either failed or felt insecure. Instead of being a loner and a lowly infantryman that failed to make it into soldier, he became Cloud Strife, soldier first class. Everything was a defense mechanism. Cloud gained Zack's abilities as well as his memories. He gained a lot from Zack, but in the process, he nearly lost himself. Zack was everything Cloud wanted to be. He was a badass soldier first class. He was tall, strong, brave, charming, selfless, friendly, and kind. And Cloud deeply admired Zack. But the truth is, as we see in their interactions, Zack admired Cloud too. The two had a genuine friendship. Zack didn't look down on Cloud. Cloud looked down on himself. A lot of the things that Cloud was so insecure about were put onto him by himself. He had this idea that nobody would accept or respect him if he didn't become a soldier. Only that wasn't true. Zack respected him. Tifa respected him. But he didn't respect himself. And so rather than accept himself and his shortcomings, finding himself completely unacceptable, he chose not to accept himself, and so became someone else. Rather than heal a fractured mind, he gave way to delusion, and now any illusions of Cloud Strife Soldier First Class are gone, and all that is left is a painful yet comforting reality: the truth. Cloud Strife was not created in a lab. He wasn't a failed Sephiroth clone. He was a failure in the eyes of the Shinra Soldier program, sure, and a failure in the eyes of Dr. Hojo, who was an evil mad scientist with no regard for human life, but to everyone else that truly mattered, he mattered. Cloud wasn't some prodigy. He was a loner, someone who screwed up a lot. He was human, a real one, and through his heroic actions, despite his failures, has succeeded in being a good one. He does his best, and sometimes his best isn't good enough. And whenever that would happen, he'd let it get him down. He'd doubt his self-worth. No, Cloud wasn't born in a lab. He's human, alright, as human as the rest of us, flaws and all. And so now the story continues, with Cloud, finally the true Cloud, having accepted who and what he is, again leading the party. Fast forward again, and the party puts their heads together to find the answer to yet another lingering mystery. Why did Aerith go to the City of the Ancients, and what was she trying to do there before she was killed? Working with Red 13's grandpa, a spiritual elder named Bugenhagen, yes, I know, long story, don't ask. They return to the site of the incident, where they finally put the pieces together and get their answer. The spirits of the Ancients swelling the room indicate one thing: the crisis posed to the planet by Sephiroth is one far too great to be solved by human hands, and in order to counteract the ultimate black materia, Meteor, threatening the planet, its polar opposite, the ultimate white materia, Holy, is needed to save it. But how do they get Holy? It appears when the heart and mind of one who seeks it reaches the planet. And all things the planet deems threats, Meteor, weapons, and possibly even humans if the planet deems it necessary, are to be eliminated by Holy. All of the time they knew her, Aerith had a white, powerless materia handed down to her by her mother, a dead ancient. But she was never able to use it, and so she kept it in her hair. And when she, an ancient, finally realized this and finally understood the purpose of her white materia, she journeyed to the altar of the City of the Ancients and prayed. And when she was killed, when she was struck down from above by Sephiroth, and her heart and mind were reunited with the planet, her spirit reunited with the planet, it was activated and began to glow green like the lifestream itself. After Cloud gave Sephiroth the black materia, Aerith realized what she had to do to save the planet, even if it meant at the cost of her own life. With tremendous guilt and gratitude, Cloud swears that her sacrifice will not be in vain. And all of the party stands with him, ready to do their part in honoring Aerith's sacrifice and saving the planet. And finally, the party does one final raid on Shinra in Midgar, and in their final confrontation with Dr. Hojo, they learn yet another big reveal. Hojo is Sephiroth's father. Yes, that's right. Remember Lucrezia, Sephiroth's mom? The one who Vincent was in love with? Well, for some reason that defies all logic, she chose to get involved with Dr. Hojo over Vincent and have his child. At which point, Hojo infected his own child, his own son, with Genova cells in the womb. And when Vincent confronted Hojo about this, he was shot dead, then experimented on by Hojo, which ultimately revived him and gave him special abilities and turned him into the Vincent we know today. Dr. Hojo, through his mad experimentations, created Cloud, Sephiroth, and Vincent as we know them today. And now it is time for him to pay the price. He conducts his final experiment on himself for the boss fight before he is killed by the party, and the rest of the Shinra executives are killed in this final battle as well. Shinra is totally wiped out by the combined might of both the party and weapons. And with that, finally, the threat of Shinra, the very one we started off the game facing, is dealt with, and yet we know the fight is not over. For, as we learned early on, we have a new threat that dwarfs Shinra, and that threat has only gotten more powerful than ever. He has gained ultimate destructive power, Sephiroth. The final battle awaits, and it is one that we will never forget. After defeating Shinra, before the final battle, the party takes a moment to reflect. 7 days until Meteor falls. There's one standout moment where Barret reflects on his past actions and questions if bombing reactors truly was the right move. Was resorting to terrorism really the right call to save the planet? A lot of innocent people and friends were hurt because of his actions. At first it was about getting revenge on Shinra for destroying his hometown, killing his wife, and others. We learned about this in a story segment earlier. But then it became about making for a better future for Marlene. But did it really make for a better future for Marlene? He can't change the past, but he can change his reasons for fighting. So why will he fight Sephiroth? For Marlene, to save the world for her future. And with that, Cloud tells Barret to visit Marlene and tells everyone in the party to take some time to find their personal reasons for fighting. And if they can't find one, if they choose not to come back to the airship to face Sephiroth, he understands. And so all but Tifa and himself depart to find themselves. For Tifa, just like Cloud, is all alone in the world. The only people they have left from their past is each other. And so, under the high wind, they have a touching moment where she tells Cloud that even if nobody else comes back, as long as she's with him by her side, she'll never give up, no matter how scared she is. And in a beautifully written, heartfelt exchange, Tifa tells Cloud that despite being close with him, there was always a distance, until the lifestream, when they finally called out to each other. And now, finally, after all of this time, they heard each other's voices. And in this moment, Cloud, in his awkwardness, tells Tifa,
Hey Tifa, there were so many things I wanted to say to you. But now that we're together like this, I don't know how to say them.
and she replies,
Cloud, you don't always need words to tell others how you feel.
and true to her word, in a moment, we cut to this. Alright, I'll be honest, embarrassingly honest. When this happened, I, alone in my room, audibly said, "Aww." I said this out loud, to myself, as a man. That was my genuine, authentic reaction as a straight man. And you know what? Against my better judgment, I'm not afraid to admit it, alright? It was heartfelt, okay? I admit it. I could delete this. I don't have to post this part of the video. I'm going to be editing it. And if I still keep it in, you know what? That takes guts, alright? Sue me. It was cute. It was. And then, after spending a night together, they return to the Highwind to find everyone there. Barret! Sid! Red 13! Which prompts a reaction from Tifa when she fears the worst. Were they watching? And in a comedic moment, poor Tifa gets down on her knees in embarrassment as the men just scratch their heads. Yeah, it's pretty clear she wasn't just laying on his shoulder all night, guys, if you catch my drift. Regardless, it doesn't take away from the heartfelt, loving moment before, and if anything, only deepens it. Tifa's embarrassed, shy reaction only makes her that much more endearing, lovable, and human. And then the rest of the crew returns. Vincent, Kate Sith, and Yuffie. After everything they've been through, you really think they'd turn and walk away now? They're in this together. In another heartfelt moment, even after Cloud and Tifa accept the possibility that the rest of the party may never come back, everyone does, stronger and more determined than ever. This random bunch of misfits is more than just a group with a shared goal now. They're best friends for life. They're a family now. And even in the face of certain death, they won't leave each other's sides. Ride or die, they're in this fight together until the very end. We saw their relationships grow and evolve throughout the course of this game, and now here we are. It's beautiful. It's cathartic. God, I love it so much. This whole portion of the game, from everyone's personal reflections after defeating Shinra, to that romantic exchange between Cloud and Tifa, only to be followed up by the grand return of the party, makes for one of my favorite segments in the whole game. I love it so much. Now, with that being said, let's step back to that favorite moment of mine with Cloud and Tifa, alright? I'm not quite done with it yet. Under the high wind, after everyone is gone, they talk like best friends turned lovers. Two kids with long-time childhood crushes who just barely have worked up enough courage after all of these years to tell each other how they feel. And even then they could barely do it. But that's okay, because sometimes actions are stronger than words. It's a peaceful, beautiful, romantic moment. The words "I love you" never have to be uttered. You never have to see them kiss to know that they're in love. Ultimately, Cloud and Tifa's love story is at the very center of this game, and it's only fitting that as they finally have a moment of peace before the climactic final battle, a chance to sort themselves out, that they find themselves in each other's arms, finally, truly allowing themselves to fall for each other. This is what they fought for, and when Sephiroth is gone, this is what they'll have. Each other. And they'll never let go. They faced him once in Nibelheim and barely survived, but this time, unlike last time, they'll be facing him together, each of them much stronger than before, knowing with absolute certainty that they have each other by their side. Both of their journeys as characters lead them right back to each other, where they were always meant to be. On some level, deep down at its core, this story is a love story, and it's their love that ultimately gave them the power they'll need to defeat Sephiroth. Was that sappy? Maybe, but it's true. What can I say? Hey, don't blame me, I didn't write it, I'm just picking up what they're putting down. And now here we are, the full party minus Aerith, together again. Finally, after all of this time, ready to face Sephiroth. And so the party journeys to the northern crater. Once they go in, there is no turning back. The threats are stronger and greater than ever before, and the gameplay reflects that. Nevertheless, our heroes push on, plunging and pushing their way down into the depths through the thick and thin. This is it. The end is near, and the only major threats that remain are Jenova and Sephiroth. Hell, the group even set aside their differences with the Turks amicably. And finally, through lots of fighting, they reach the center. They reach Jenova. And after the battle is won, they plummet down to the center to face him. When he appears, they are suspended in air, in awe and great terror of his immense power. Yet despite it all, right behind Sephiroth is their hope. Holy. Aerith's sacrifice was not in vain. She summoned it, and there it lies, directly behind him, the key to defeating Medium. Even after death, she accompanies you, makes you breathe easier, gives you hope and the strength to carry on and defeat Sephiroth. She's not gone, and neither are you. So you and the party press on. This is it. One final battle. The moment this entire game has been building up to defeat Sephiroth. Let's do this. Battle begin. I love that this first stage in the fight with Sephiroth gives you two teams of 3 characters to fight him. It feels like everyone is coming together, and this is the most party members we've ever gotten control over in battle. My one gripe with this fight, the first stage, is that while we get control of 6 characters, that leaves 2 unaccounted for if you unlock Vincent and Yuffie. Considering that they appear in the scene just before this as part of your party if they are there, I wish there could be a way to incorporate them. However, I do understand that there are gameplay limitations. Regardless, canonically they are there, and we could imagine them all fighting here in some way. Besides, it's not like there isn't stuff like this throughout the entire game. I just hope they actually get a way to fight here in the remake. With this first Sephiroth form defeated, suddenly the screen goes black, the sound transitions, and suddenly alarming music cues, striking us, making sure we know that the fight is not over. A new threat approaches, and then, from the sky, like an angel from the heavens above, he descends upon us. Sephiroth, now in his final form. It's unsettling, it's disturbing, and we are way out of our league. And with that, as the masterful final boss theme, One-Winged Angel, plays out, we settle in for one of the most iconic final boss fights in gaming history. While it doesn't need saying, I'll say it anyway. One-Winged Angel is one of the best songs from any video game soundtrack ever. It's amazing. I've listened to it so many times. Hell, I'm listening to it right now as I write this. Instantly, you're imbued with energy, a sense of fear, and you are made fully aware of the massive threat you are facing. You tremble in your boots. And who can forget the time they saw Sephiroth pull out his iconic signature move, Supernova? I know I haven't. The shock, the awe, the fear, the amazement, the sheer power on display, and the over-the-top manner in which it is showcased is unforgettable, as Sephiroth summons a meteor from a faraway galaxy into the Milky Way, destroying our planets one by one. Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, before striking the sun, causing it to supernova, the result rapidly approaching, one by one eating away every planet on its way to Earth. Mercury, Venus, before it reaches Earth, coming from behind and passing through an unaffected Sephiroth towards us, the party, hitting all of us in a wave, dealing massive amounts of damage. Wow, holy crap. Just like that, you were on your knees, hopelessly outmatched. And you're now more aware than ever that you are fighting power on a scale the likes of which you have never seen before. Does it make sense? No. Does this actually canonically happen? Probably not. But damn if it isn't cool, and damn if it isn't effective. This is scary stuff, man. Throughout the whole game, it was made clear that Sephiroth was way out of your league. And just when you finally thought you were getting near his level, it takes his power to a cosmic, godlike scale far beyond anything you or your party members are ever capable of. You thought you were outclassed then? Oh, please. That was nothing. Hell, you and all of your party members compared to Sephiroth are nothing. Nonetheless, you power through game over screen after game over screen because you have to win. You just have to. You and your beloved characters have gone through too much. You've come too far. And even in the face of this massive danger, you won't stop. You'll never stop. You'll do whatever it takes to defeat him. Hell, throughout the entire game, I shrugged off this whole mechanic where you have your character turned into a frog. I always viewed it as almost like a goofy little side mechanic, nothing to be taken seriously. I knew there was a way to cure it, but it was never that big of a deal since I knew my characters would be cured once I won the battle. But here, I can't guarantee I'll win the battle if not everyone is in tip-top shape. And I certainly can't beat Sephiroth with any of my characters as little frogs, so I equipped the heal materia and learned the mechanic. I also had to learn how to break shields, another mechanic I ignored up until this point. Mechanics I had failed to learn prior, I had to learn here out of necessity, and now, during my next playthrough, they will be used more effectively. You put everything you've got into this battle, and despite it all, eventually, through sheer determination and will, all accomplished through gameplay, you do it. You strike a blow and Sephiroth begins to flash, glow, float, and fade away, dissipating as he does so, and you realize you've done it. You've delivered the killing blow. You win! The characters win! And their victory, the struggles they had to overcome, the battle they had to face, feels like a massive personal victory because you had to fight with them, through them. The battle simply wouldn't be won without you as the player. You use your characters in tandem with one another, customizing them with the right equipment and materia to grant them the powers and abilities needed to complement each other, and you decide which final 3 characters you use to deliver the killing blow to Sephiroth, knowing the whole party is standing there with you. I chose Cloud, Tifa, and Vincent in my playthrough. Let me know who you guys chose for the final battle down below. You and the party win. You did it. The finishing blow is struck! But even still, even the way he dies is unsettling. Unsettling until the very end. Ugh. And then, blackness. Silence. Nothing but the sound of blowing wind as we fade back in on our main characters. And after a moment of silence, Cloud states that they've done all that they can. The rest is up to the planet. And in a small but important character-affirming moment, the once ever defeatist, ever self-doubting, ever-dwelling Cloud puts the party's concerns at ease, saying,
Alright, everyone. There's no point in dwelling on it. Leave all your worries here. Let's go home proud.
Cloud Strife, the optimist. Cloud Strife, a man with faith. Huh, who knew? Until recently, Cloud Strife was a man at war with himself. Literally, in a sense. But now, after his identity crisis, after defeating Sephiroth, we see a man at peace. It's a small moment, but it's one that speaks volumes. And as I've demonstrated thus far, this game is just chock full of little character moments like this. So the party begins to depart and make their way back up to the surface. Sid and Barrett, the secondary leaders outside of Cloud and maybe Tifa, taking the lead. Yuffie, Red 13, and Kate Sith following behind. And for just a little extra moment, Vincent watches Tifa and Cloud stay behind before following the others. I like to think that this was another intentional little detail from the developers. Like Vincent knew something was up, something was coming, that something wasn't quite finished, or at least that he suspected it. Maybe in part due to his own traumatic past being similar to Cloud's, being himself experimented on by Hojo and all. Whatever the case, he joins the others, and after a longer moment, Tifa and Cloud begin to follow, when, white flash, Cloud stops dead in his tracks. Tifa turns around.
What's wrong? I feel it. What?
Flash.
He's still here.
Flash. Cloud grabs his head and recoils in pain, shaking it, an ethereal-like transparent form coming from him again as he collapses to his knees. Not again!
Still.
Flash.
Cloud? He's laughing.
And with that, his ethereal form takes off, a flash as Tifa screams out.
Cloud!
And there he is, Cloud's consciousness flying down, hurtling into the lifestream like a meteor, eyes closed, peaceful, like he's being whisked away in a wind tunnel to a destination in an ethereal plane, white flashes along the way. And when his eyes open as he hurtles down toward the threat below, there is a brief moment of surprise on his stoic, peaceful face as Sephiroth stands before him, a calm, sadistic little smile on his face. Their eyes focus on each other, and the battle begins. One final battle, one final killing blow to end things, to truly be rid of this sickening evil, the last trace of Genova, a foreign, evil alien invader from another world who has done nothing but infect our world and its people. Cloud's limit meter charges, and he delivers his ultimate limit breaker. The ultimate triumphant killing blow if ever there was one on Sephiroth. This is it. This has to be. Sephiroth recoils at the blow, wounded, gives a familiar, sadistic smile, leaving the player with a familiar feeling of doubt. Blackness. And when the light returns, we see a worried Sephiroth, eyes wide, a face covered in blood. He's scared, terrified, before his body is engulfed in light, and this time, finally, definitively, in a glow of light, he is gone once again. Now and forever, Sephiroth is dead. Sephiroth is no more. Even on the ethereal plane, Sephiroth is finished. And for once, for all, for real this time, it finally was enough. Our power, Cloud's power, was finally enough. We finally did it. We won. The live stream comes to Cloud's aid, and Aerith's hand reaches out to him, and as he reaches back, the hand transforms into Tifa's, and he's back in the physical world where he left off. Everything collapses. The ground shakes. Tifa falls off the cliffside, and this time, unlike last time, he catches her just in time. He saves her. This time he was fast enough. This time he was strong enough. When she's in trouble, he comes and saves her, just like he promised he would all of those years ago. And as her theme plays, she holds him tight, closes her eyes, and rests her head against his chest. Her hero. He did it. Cloud Strife, the awkward kid who failed to save the girl he liked all of those years ago, finally saved her in the end. He finally beat the bad guy, and he finally got the girl of his dreams. And she finally got the man of hers. He kept his promise to her, and fulfilled on it. He finally became that man. And it wasn't through Soldier like he thought it would be. He wasn't able to keep that part of his promise. But that never truly mattered. Not to her, not in the end. That was always out of his hands. He had no control over who deemed him worthy and who approved of him. Cloud always wanted the approval of others. When he wasn't good enough to earn their approval, he became someone who did. Zack. Only Zack wasn't great because Soldier deemed him so, or because he was given the rank of Soldier First Class, and only by accepting both the failures and greatness that resides within himself is Cloud able to overcome his failures and use them as stepping stones to achieve his own form of greatness, to win in the end. Though he failed in his initial goal to join Soldier, though he failed countless times on his journey, in the end of it all, he succeeded where it truly matters, and Tifa got her happy ending. In the end, the flawed, angry little boy from Nibelheim emerged from its ashes as the man of her dreams, forged in fire, baptized by the lifestream of the planet, and defeated its greatest adversary. Ironically, it was only by letting go of his failed promise to join Soldier, which is a promise he made to become strong for Tifa, that he was able to become strong enough to save her. He only saw one avenue of greatness, and it was an avenue controlled by others, Shinra, who were, in truth, evil with their own agendas. No, Zack died a hero on the cliffside outside of Midgar, dragging his friend to safety and defending him when he was too weak to defend himself, fighting back against Shinra, the very organization that created Soldier and gave him his rank and his powers. He died defending his friend and himself from an evil organization he once swore allegiance to, fighting an uphill battle to the death even if he didn't know he was going to win. That was what made Zack a hero. And nobody gave that to him. They tried to take it away. And in fighting back, in fighting the powers that be, in staying true to himself and his core values, in standing and fighting by his helpless friend alone on the cliffside with nobody else on his side to witness, he won. He became a hero. That raw heroism was in him all along. Shinra didn't give it to him, and the Soldier program certainly didn't give it to him, nor was it a requirement to join Soldier. Hell, if you need evidence, just look at how their star pupil Sephiroth turned out. No. By killing the evil, corrupted man who set him on the path to become a hero and ridding him from his mind, Cloud is finally able to make his way back to the actual reasons he wanted to be a hero. To the actual people who made him want to be a hero in the first place. Himself and Tifa. And in doing so, he became the greatest hero there ever was. At least in this story. In this very moment, as he holds the girl of his dreams in one arm and dangles from a cliffside in the other, saving her from plummeting below, Cloud Strife finally delivers on his promise to Tifa from years ago and becomes the hero he always wanted to be, the hero he was all along. This moment on the cliffside directly parallels one from their childhood. Then, he was too weak. He was too unprepared. He wasn't fast enough. He wasn't strong enough. And this time, he is. The same brave, heroic heart, the same love and care for Tifa, only this time, through many years, through many trials, tribulations, and lots of hard work, he finally succeeded. He was finally ready for her, and she accepts him and praises him in loving, open arms. And here, accompanied by Tifa's soothing presence and theme song, Cloud finally comes to a calming realization about the planet's answer to this crisis, the Promised Land, and Aerith, who resides there. They pull themselves up to see their friends waiting for them there, and just as they're about to head out, everything comes crashing down above them. And as Sid says, "Lady Luck, don't fail me now." Right on cue, the high wind comes crashing down, the painted bikini babe on the side in full view as if to represent Lady Luck herself. And in a perfect moment, a burst of blue energy from down below, from Holy, blasts the ship out of the crater, sending it flying into the sky with the party all inside. Sid takes control and they are saved from certain death. A perfect set of coincidences. The debris that was falling to kill them brings the much-needed key to their survival just when they need it the most, followed by a much-needed burst of energy that blasts them just high enough in the air to give Sid enough time to take control and get them to safety with everyone now aboard. A perfect set of coincidences. A perfect chain of events. Almost as if the planet itself is looking out for them. Almost as if someone within the lifestream with power is looking out for them. And given the timing, given what Cloud just said, you start to wonder, is it true? But we're not out of the woods yet, as Meteor approaches from above. It's here, despite it all, despite going down into the core of the planet and thoroughly and completely defeating Sephiroth, they couldn't stop the meteor he summoned. Helpless to stop the destruction, the impending meteor wreaks havoc on Midgar. We watch at first not through the eyes of our heroes high in the sky from an airship, but from the ground below by Midgar through the helpless eyes of an innocent child, Marlene. She is as powerless as we the player are to stop it. And then a burst of energy from the lifestream, Holy, the very same energy that shot them from the crater, intervenes just as they're about to make impact. and even still, it crashes. Seemingly nothing is going to stop Meteor's path of destruction. Nothing. And now our heroes helplessly watch from Cid's airship. The planet is doomed. And then, from the planet below, way below, lifestream energy emerges. Just as Sephiroth had predicted, just as he planned, the planet summons lifestream energy that rushes to its defense to heal itself from the wound Meteor is creating. Only now that he is dead, he won't be there to absorb it. And so the energy rushes to the epicenter of destruction, joining forces with the holy materia summoned by Aerith to push back against this unrelenting destructive power of Meteor crashing into the planet. All watch on, and in a flash, as the battle for the life of the planet rages on between these two forces, we see Aerith's face in the darkness, in the lifestream. Cut to credits. So there we are, we've reached the endpoint. Final Fantasy VII, ladies and gentlemen. The heroes did all they could to save the planet, and in the end, it is up to the planet, guided by the spirit of Aerith, the last of the Cetra, to save itself from the destruction a human caused. Well, okay, human-alien hybrid, I suppose, but you get the point. So you see, Aerith's death was not in vain. She died summoning Holy, and through her death became a greater force for the planet in fighting back against Sephiroth and Meteor than she ever could have been alive. This was how it was always meant to be. She was the last of a dead race. By becoming one with the planet, she guides it to its final victory. Or so we believe. So we hope. And that's another interesting detail. We see the energy forming, but we don't see Meteor's path of destruction stopping or ceasing. We don't even see it pushed back. It still continues forward, driving into the planet. We are only given a moment seemingly before a pushback and a final look at Aerith in the lifestream that gives us the hope that it and the planet will win again. That everything will turn out okay. That's the note we end on. Hope. Our characters do everything in their power to stop great destruction, get as far as they can, and certainly do their part in cutting it down and minimizing it. But in the end, all that we are left with is hope that the planet, guided by the spirit of their beloved friend, will save itself. We hope that humanity is not deemed bad by the planet, and that they too will survive. In a way, our party acted as ambassadors for all of humanity in their final battle with Sephiroth, and we hope it was enough to prove to the planet that, despite all of the harm Shinra and Sephiroth and others have done, humanity is still worth saving. We hope that our heroes and the innocent people of the planet survive this ordeal and get the happy endings that they deserve. But we can only hope, for we never see those endings. And speaking of endings, we're not quite done yet. There's one final after-credits scene. 500 years later, we see Red 13 and some others of his species. I don't know how he managed to reproduce, considering he was the last of his species, but the game doesn't answer that, so I couldn't tell you. They run up to the cliffside and overlook Midgar, covered in plant life. Birds flying above. Life lives on. Somehow, some of Midgar survived this, and life lives on. Now, does that mean our heroes survived, or humanity for that matter? In the context of the original game, you could argue it's still technically a little uncertain. I mean, certainly Red 13 did, and if he did, then it stands to reason that everyone else in the airship did as well. But even outside of that, Aerith, the lifestream, and the game itself gave me enough hope that they survived. Much like life in Final Fantasy VII.
Hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies.
For even in death, we never leave the planet. We return to it, becoming part of it, the lifestream, as Aerith did. It gives us life, and in return, we give back our life energy to aid it, becoming part of the lifestream. It's the circle of life. And that's what the fabled Promised Land was. It wasn't a place, it was the lifestream. The Cetra died, and in their deaths they found the Promised Land, the lifestream, the hereafter. That was their heavenly paradise. You could argue that the heavenly paradise being sought after being essentially death is morbid and sad, but the Cetra didn't see it that way. Aerith didn't see it that way, and the game certainly doesn't frame it that way. Even in death, as Aerith proves, you can still make a positive impact on people's lives, whether that be through the life energy of the planet or the legacy and impact you leave behind. Much like matter, in the world of Final Fantasy VII, life can't be created or destroyed. It just changes form. Hell, Zack too leaves behind a beautiful legacy for Cloud to carry on. And in the original game, his death is cold and brutal. It's cruel, it's unfair, and worse yet, his own parents thought he was a bad son who'd been ghosting them for 10 years. And Aerith thought he blew her off for another girl, when in reality he was making his way back to her. He didn't get the glory or the girl, or even his reputation. Well, come to think of it, he probably did get the girl in the end when he reunited with her in the lifestream, and one day he'll reunite with his parents too. But that proves my point. Even after death, life goes on. Death is not the end. The legacy our life leaves behind is more important than our lives themselves. And Aerith's death is cruel and unfair too. Final Fantasy VII doesn't shy away from these things. It doesn't sugarcoat the morbid nature of death, or trivialize it or grief for that matter. It shows it in full. It just also shows that life goes on, that even through hardship and trauma and pain and death, there can be meaning. There can be something beautiful on the other side. Despite the pain, despite the hardships, there is still some sort of natural spiritual order to things. And most importantly, while it can be harsh and full of heartache and pain, and can be cruelly cut short in an instant, life is still beautiful, and there is still life after death. When the beauty of life is corrupted, it causes a great disturbance in the natural spiritual life cycle of the planet, and there are dire consequences to face for such actions. It's not a coincidence that our primary antagonists, Sephiroth, Jenova, and Shinra, are the ones that are most adamant on disrupting the planet's natural life cycle in one way or another to achieve their own ends. They aren't just antagonists of the game, but of the planet itself. Sephiroth was rejected by the lifestream because he himself was a rejection and perversion of the natural planetary life cycle, just like Jenova was. And so in his bitter anger and hatred for the planet, much like Jenova, he sought to strike back against it and take control over it for himself. Rather than seeing the beauty in the natural order of things, he only sought to destroy it and pervert it for his own ends. Sephiroth is a perversion of everything the planet is about. He wasn't a hero, but a corporate, political, propagandized version of a hero deployed on private wars by sinister, selfish individuals with no regard for the well-being of humanity or the planet, only their own power and wealth. He was used by Shinra to give actual good-natured people like Cloud and Zack a seemingly noble cause to fight for that in reality was anything but. Sephiroth and Shinra perverted the greatest and noblest ideals of men. And let's really harp on this idea. Sephiroth was never a hero, nor was he ever a good person. In an earlier version of this portion of the video, I went into much greater detail on this point, but I decided that's a topic all on its own for discussion, so I'll keep it brief here. Sephiroth is a false prophet, a false savior. Aerith was pure, the real deal. Everything about Sephiroth was a lie, a corruption. Sephiroth didn't go on some mass murdering spree based on enlightenment to avenge the unjust death of his people. He was a delusional moron, misled by false information to slaughter a bunch of innocent people under the false belief and justification that they deserved it, for they harmed his mother. Only the Cetra were never his people. Jenova was never a Cetra, and it was Jenova who hurt the Cetra. Everything he fought for was a lie. And did he ever show an ounce of guilt or a desire to change after learning the truth about both Jenova and the Cetra? No, of course not. The truth is, Sephiroth was a violent, sadistic psychopath with a superiority complex who was looking for an excuse to kill and subjugate people and ascend to a godlike status above humanity. Aerith, an actual Cetra, never acted like she was superior to others. She never used the tragic fate of her people as a chance to play victim or harm others. Instead, she followed in the footsteps of her people, sacrificing her life in order to save both the planet and humanity, despite all of the harm Shinra brought upon her in her lifetime. She saw that humanity was worth saving because she cared enough to spend time with them, getting to know them, and she knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the evil acts of Shinra were not representative of all of humanity. Sephiroth never cared about saving the planet or avenging the Cetra or anything like that. Hell, he goes from being outraged by the supposed extinction of the Cetra to being the one who actually causes their extinction by killing the last of the Cetra. Those are all just excuses for him to place himself on a pedestal above the rest of humanity so that he could strike down on those beneath him. Sephiroth is arrogant and power-hungry, and as soon as he got wind of the idea that he's something greater than humanity, he immediately distanced himself from them and struck them down in his rage. Rage at having been controlled and ordered around by people he now saw as beneath him all his life. No longer would he ever serve or be toyed with by those he deemed beneath him. The word puppet is used by Sephiroth a lot to describe Cloud. He was a corporate and political puppet all his life, given illusions as to his real identity. So when he gets the chance to do the same to someone like Cloud, he takes it in full. Sephiroth is petty, vile, sadistic, power-hungry, and violent, and in the end, he becomes far more evil and powerful than the world-dominating megacorporation that created him. But in the process, he creates enemies, including the party and the planet itself that, when combined, ultimately are strong enough to bring about his downfall. Like his mother, Sephiroth was always destined to fail at the hands of the planet and its noblest warriors. And you start to wonder, was this all fake? Does it matter? The planet won. The heroes won. And most importantly, we as the players won by getting an unforgettable story and experience that will stick with us forever. The characters, the music, the soundtrack, the gameplay, the character designs, the twists, the turns, the lore, the world building, the character arcs, everything comes together to form what can only be seen as a masterclass in storytelling. There's a wealth of information contained within this game, so much so that an explained video simply can't do it justice. Hell, I can't even do it justice, but I sure as hell can analyze it, gush about it, and explain why I love it and what it means to me. I'm a writer, a creative, and I can't tell you how often I reference this game when I'm talking to other creatives. Years after I played it, I keep coming back to it, and something tells me I always will. It's a love and a passion lit in me that will never die, and I want to thank the entire creative team for lighting it within me. And they laid the groundwork to do so before I even existed, which again goes to show the power of legacy. As I stated earlier, the information isn't as important as the way that it is conveyed, and the way that it is conveyed is what makes me feel something. It's what makes it impactful, memorable, unforgettable. Who can forget that moment when Cloud first takes off that infantry helmet? The sigh of relief we felt. That aha moment when we realized that Cloud was real, that he wasn't merely a Sephiroth clone. This game is just filled with unforgettable moments like that. Too many to mention, all stitched together brilliantly. And the plot twists and the aforementioned one centered around Cloud Strife and his identity crisis makes me want to go back and play through the entire game with a fresh set of eyes, and just comb through and analyze it just like I'm doing with this video. I can't stop thinking about it, and I don't want to. And what's an unforgettable story without an unforgettable protagonist? Let's give it up for Cloud Strife, ladies and gentlemen! See, I went into this game thinking Cloud Strife was just some 90s cool anime boy with a big sword, and I walked away with one of the best written, relatable protagonists in any video game that I've ever played, with one of the best and most unique hero's journeys I've ever witnessed. And at the end of his journey, Cloud became the man he always wanted to be, only better, accepting his flaws and his failures and rising above them. And at the end of the day, aren't we all? Cloud represents the best in us, even the screw-ups. Because if you believe in yourself, if you project who you want to be onto yourself and live by it, then one day you'll become the person you want to be. One day you'll reach your dreams and get that girl or that guy and make the world a better place for others. And that's what Cloud Strife means to me. He's the ultimate embodiment of the triumph of the human spirit. In the end, despite all of his mental issues and failures and everything, he beats the bad guy, gets the girl, and even helps save the world. And to top it all off, he even makes some amazing friends in the process. Cloud Strife, that one loner kid from Nibelheim. Cloud Strife, who failed to save the girl he loved, who failed to become a soldier, finally won in the end. But Cloud's story, and the story of Final Fantasy VII as a whole, simply would not have worked this well if it was told in clear chronological order without all the twists and turns. No story is told in chronological. Not truly. No, it is told in the order that it needs to be told. All this backstory, this story, could have been told in a straight line, instead of all this back and forth, twisting and turning out of order stuff, but then it would have never been this memorable. It would have never had the same impact or character growth. And while it may seem unnecessarily confusing to an outside viewer hearing it all now, when these details come bit by bit over the course of 50 plus hours, it feels a whole lot more natural. Trust me. Upon combing through the story in such a deliberate and in-depth manner, I have found that the meticulous and deliberate manner in which all of its information is unveiled over the course of its 50 plus hour story, your mileage may vary, is nothing short of masterful. It's all done with deliberate intent, and even still, I know there are details I have yet to discover. It's a game that just begs to be explored further, and you will want to dive in head first to explore it again and again and again. And I can't wait to play it again. It's nothing short of a work of creative genius, and I hope that one day I will be able to make something of this caliber. But until that day, I am more than happy to just be inspired by it, in awe of it, in the presence of it, and I am more than happy and proud to be a fan. For all the reasons I mentioned and more, Final Fantasy VII is an absolute masterclass in storytelling. And despite being 49 pages deep into this script, I still feel like I'm not even close to being done talking about it. I'm sure there are some things I missed, but I said everything I needed to say. I love Final Fantasy VII. I love Cloud, Tifa, Barret, Aerith, Red 13, Vincent, Yuffie, and you know what? What the hell? I even love Kate Sith. I love the whole party so much that here's a print I bought of all of them. I love Final Fantasy VII, and whether you've played the game or not, I hope that after watching this video, you can come to love it too, or at the very least, appreciate and understand why I love it so much. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It's something I've wanted to make for a really long time, and I'm glad I finally just hunkered down and did it. So much passion just flows through me when I talk about this game, and I hope it comes across in the video. And I really hope one day, as a creator, as a writer, to create something that inspires other people to just gush about it and to create stuff of their own the same way this game has inspired me. This is just everything I've wanted to do as a creator, and the link between fan and creator is never too far, you know? And before I let you guys go, with that being said, I do want to talk about my upcoming comic book, Phenomenova. Set 20 years after World War III, Phenomenova follows the teenage son of a World War III veteran who gets struck by lightning while holding a mysterious crystal, and he finds himself awakening with lightning powers and lightning speed. And he uses those powers and attempts to intervene at a heist at a nuclear reactor, but finds himself in way over his head when he faces a supervillain that is totally out of his league. The comic is 64 pages of story, 68 pages total, and there's even an art contest wherein the winner will get chosen to have their piece featured in the book. All of the information can be found on the campaign page right here, and best of all, it's already funded, so if you want a copy, you gotta order. And for all you Final Fantasy VII fans, there is a Final Fantasy VII homage/parody cover variant that is available only through this campaign. So if you want it, all you gotta do is go to the appropriate tier. Say, for example, you want just the Final Fantasy VII cover, select that, hit choose reward, and then hit the cart, and all you gotta do is check out from there. Select whatever tier you want, back the comic if you're interested. It's only going to be available with this cover for a limited time, so act fast. And if you're watching this long after the fact and you missed the chance to get this cover, but you're still interested in the comic, that's okay. Just go to RebelOasisStudios.com, will be the website, or you could just go to this page. Either way, follow me on all socials, and I really hope to see you getting this book. You've seen I have a strong passion for writing, and if that sounds interesting to you, if you like what I had to say about Final Fantasy VII, maybe you'll like some of my original work. But otherwise, or maybe you just like the cover. Either way, if you're interested, make sure you back this campaign. Oh, and also, I do stream Final Fantasy VII Rebirth right here on the channel. So if you're interested, check out some of the streams I've done and check out some of the streams I'm going to do. I'm getting closer to the end of the game. I'm really taking my time with it. With that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day or night or whenever it is, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out and have a good one.